Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Vanished from the Universe? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. They draw near, hee. The voice belonged to what sounded like a middle-aged man with a booming echo in his environment, which looked like he was simply floating space but surviving somehow. All around him were distant stars shining like blinking Christmas lights, but so far away. Well, I'd better prepare, the voice said to himself and the void. He lifted his arm, which was dressed in a nice blue sleeve with rosy red wool fingerless gloves, and snapped lazily. The effect was instant. The empty void in which the voice laid started to spawn in diamond-styled white and baby blue tiles, several blue and white couches with plentiful pillows, tables that had bowls and trays stuffed the tops and filled with varying snacks. The owner of the voice looked up at the source of noises, which were whirling pools of purple mists. Each portal varied in size, either being rather large or small enough for fairly big house cats to fall through. But then, he heard it. Various voices yelled out in fear or surprise before. Holy foo dash. No. Please. 28 different Wade bodies landed perfectly on the couches that were spawned. Okay, what the fuck? An angry voice cried out, which was then backed up with similar shouts of agreement. The voice belonged to Bakugo Katsuki, and the backing up cheers included, but not limited to Kirishima Ijiro, Kaminari Denki, Midnight and Kyoka Gyre. Everyone please, the voice of the void spoke up before things would go out of hand. I'll explain if you'll all let me. 28 pairs of eyes darted to a large, squishy, comfortable, dark blue recliner chair with a man in it. The man looked like an average man in every way, not so tall or short, even sitting down, shoulder-length brown hair and matching eyes. Blue pajama pants and a blue sweater with red fingerless mitts. Who the fuck? Why, what the hell? I can't get up. Bakugo tried to confront the man, but when he tried to stand his body refused to move, and after only moments more and more realized. Really everyone, if you'll let me explain, the man started, I've taken you all to my theater, gesturing to the front of the room that had a theater-sized TV screen, so I may show you something. Show us what? Mr. Isawa spoke up for the first time. All I'm doing is giving you a show of anthology stories based around the one person who should be here, but isn't. The man explained. Albeit a bit hesitantly, some had started to turn and look for anyone. Class 1A, Eri, Togata, and they saw the pros / teachers, Midnight, Eraserhead, All Might, Nizu, and strangely enough Empty Lady. And a gentle-looking green-haired woman in her middle ages that looked strangely like DU / Midoriya. Ida and Uraraka realized at the same time, and many others joined in. Right on. The man confirmed. What's your deal, Midoriya? Why him? Ujiro asked. Well, first, this is the multiverse, where every possibility is a separate reality. Where infinite chances happen, and every person has a certain amount of multiverses dedicated to them, based on potential and opportunity. And your Midoriya has the most. Also don't worry about him. I put him in a separate universe where he's currently being fed Katsudan by. Oh, I'd rather hold on to it. The man ended with a sly smile and resting his head on the chair's arm. While most were astonished, yet accepting of this, whatever it was. While Bakugo, in particular, was agitated by even the suggestion of Deku having more of anything than him, other than chromosomes. Well, it's true. All I plan on doing is showing and teaching you all things about young Midoriya that he rather I wouldn't tell you. The man said with a relieved smile, now that explanations were done, but he felt he was missing something. Well fine, All Might started, but who are you? That's what he's missing. Oh right. In short, my name is Sith. Sith, everyone thought at the same time. Izuku, Midoriya? Deku, what happens to you? If we're asking who people are, who are you? Kirishima asked, looking at the Deku-looking woman who sat next to All Might. Oh right, I'm Izuku's mother, Ininko. She stated, not yet ready to be the center of attention. It makes so much sense now. thought practically everyone. But one more thing. Aoyama spoke, speaking for everyone when he asked, "What will you be showing us?" Okay, so, in this specific one I have in mind, Izuku will be tutored by a man named Rock Lee, who is a retired martial artist who chose Izuku as his protege, as in this universe they have one thing in common. I can't say what it is yet, but you'll know. If that's all, let's go. Sith cheered as he snapped his fingers, making the T.V screen start with a view of a semi-clear blue sky. It's beautiful. Eri awed at it. Some agreed while others enjoyed how the small child was entertained by simple things. All right. A thunderous and triumphant voice yelled out. All might. Many of the viewers recognized the voice instantly, but then started to wonder, so what'll he do? So now that the teams have been organized, the camera went down to show that they were on All Might's very first hero training session, showing off all the students in their hero suits and standing in front of the training building. The first teams are. All Might then pulled out one ball from each of the hero and villain boxes. Team D will be the villains, he announced as the camera focused onto Ojiro and Tenya nodding. Wait, wasn't it Bakugo and Ida? Ojiro asked. Sith was quick to reply, yes, but this change was needed to show the real change in this universe. And Team A will play heroes. The camera then showed Uraraka in her pink, white and black suit and Deku, who had an entirely new costume. His tracksuit was now solid green. He had something that looked like an orange cover that went from his elbow to his wrist, with the same thing on his shins to his calves, a red headband for his hair with his matching shoes and belt. Hey, young Midoriya looks a bit off. All Might spoke up, which most of the audience agreed with. You said he was trained by a man named Rock Lee? Yep, so now he's a martial artist, Sith answered, but then started to scratch his chin. I guess I should tell you guys about him and Izuku. He was met by a unanimous wave of nods and pleas. Okay, so, in this universe Izuku never gained his quirk, shooting a glance to All Might and Inko. So he wanted to learn how to fight well enough that he wouldn't even need one, and he encountered Rock Lee, a man who had the same idea as Izuku when he was young. So after around a year and a half, Izuku still is training with Rock and was sent to Udata. Cool, Kaminari said and was met with agreement. That would be cool to see, Jiru started, to see someone as skilled as Ojiro going against him. To which was also met with agreement. The camera went to Izuku and Ochako, who were waiting to get in, while Izuku was doing intense stretches to prepare while Ochako was secretly wondering how much they hurt. A few giggled at that. I feel like the only thing we can do is stick together, and if I distract them both, all you have to do is grab the thing. Izuku said with his head under his knee and eye level with his belt with his leg against the wall. Uraraka sighed, glad they had at least a bit of a game plan. Alright, let's go. Excuse me, Mr. Sith, I just thought of something, Nizu said. I remember that young Midoriya used his quirk to save young Uraraka. If he has no quirk in this universe, what did happen? Nizu had a good point. What did happen? The bell rang and the heroes entered the building, just to go to Ida and Ojiro. This is weird, Ida said, watching all of us like this, I mean. I think I should scout for them, Ojiro started. If your quirk is engine, I don't think only one of them could get you if I were run into them and split them up. Ida thought for only a moment. That would work quite well, and our devices would keep us in touch. I say go for it, I'll call you back up if things are going wrong. Ojiro gave him a thumbs up and traveled stealthily through the complex, sweeping though each floor and listening for his competitors. Meanwhile, Midoriya and Uraraka were doing the same, until all three were on the same floor. Ooh, this is tense. Mina squealed in anticipation from the screen room. Ooh, this is so, Mina said, then realizing what she just did and started to laugh. Ha, man, this is super weird, ha. Kirishima agreed. Izuku, followed by Ochako, were both crouching and moving towards a turn in the hall as Ojiro did the same. Both audiences held their breath, and then Izuku threw up a fist, signaling for Ochako to stop as his other hand reached into a pouch in his belt. Ojiro was stalking carefully towards the corner of the hall. The one in front of him was quite wide, so if he went in he'd be expo. His thoughts were interrupted by a small metal star fly at him from the left corner. Holy heck / holy heck, both Minetas yelled out. His instincts took over to swiftly dodge the tiny scrap of murder. Many laughed openly at this, and surprisingly enough one of them included Bakugo. And it landed with a think as it pierced the wall, and upon expecton he realized it was a bona fide ninja star, refined, cleaned, and polished with care. Well, if Deku's just throwing those things around now, it makes sense he'd do that, Ochako said. I really wouldn't expect less from him. Ida added, typing that made me laugh for some odd reason. Ojiro didn't make a sound and turned only to see Izuku leaning against the corner. He casually waved at him and said, "Hey. It's about to go down." Kaminari said, bouncing in his seat in excitement he normally reserved for action movies. "Uraraka, you can go on, I'll get him." Izuku assured his teammate as she gave him thumbs up and continued her search with a bit of a rush. Right, Ojiro thought to himself, once I deal with him and she finds Ida, we can capture her easier. Izuku came off the wall and walked to the middle of the hall, and so did Ojiro, and they stared each other down before. Izuku put his arms tightly to his sides and bowed halfway. He was formally challenging Ojiro, a fellow martial artist. Dude. Both Kaminaris were in the most open state of awe and anticipation at the display. Ojiro chuckled at it. He was quite curious about how well this version on Izuku would fight against him without any quirk. Not that his opinion of his own quirk was all that high. On the contrary, he had always forgotten how unique it was because of his control over it and its lack of flashiness. At times he was even insecure of it. Ojiro knew at once what he was doing and was even a bit surprised by his sportsmanship. So Ojiro started to do the same by sticking his arms to his sides and bowing to the green-haired boy, and after about 3 seconds they both rose. Izuku's hand darted for a pouch and unveiled a kunai with a satisfying shi and tossed it while yelling, "Explosive!" Ojiro sidestepped it while looking at it past thinking, "Close one," and turned back to the green-clad combatant, only to see him flying at him in the classic, flying karate kick form. "Damn, /holy moly," the audience yelled. "Cool, /get, /yes," the other audience yelled. Ojiro was flustered but was still impressed with Izuku. "Entrance!" Izuku yelled as his foot connected with Ojiro's jaw as he went skidding down the hall. "This Midoriya's hella cool, even without a quirk," Mina pointed out, and many replied with a huss and nods. Ojiro rolled and got to his feet as Izuku ran up to him and stopped only a couple of feet away to strike at Ojiro's chest. But Ojiro blocked with one hand and used his other to aim at Izuku's face, and to counter it, Izuku did a backward cartwheel kick to once again knock Ojiro off his feet and to his bum. What style is Midoriya fighting with? Taijutsu, where Rock Lee was trained. They separated martial arts in a few groups, two being Taijutsu, the art of fighting, and the other is ninja-like stealth. Rock Lee and Izuku both don't truly give a damn about the stealth one though. Sith answered. Izuku jumped up to land atop of Ojiro, but he reared both his legs up and donkey kicked him out of the air and into the ceiling, causing it to crack. "Oh, /oh." Both audiences groaned on the green boy's behalf. Izuku landed on his hands and knees with his ears ringing, and Ojiro ran to capture Izuku while he was stunned. But as Ojiro approached, Izuku shot him a menacing look as his too-fast-to-react legs spun around and tripped Ojiro, and Izuku spun more to put himself on one knee, prepped his arm, and swung his hand down. "Shuai," and with that Izuku chopped Ojiro's stomach and flattened him to the ground. "Damn!" Kirishima and Bakugo yelled at the same time. Ojiro winced and wrapped his tail around his stomach. "He turned the tides, impressive," said Nizu to Aizawa, who agreed, while All Might, even though he wasn't his protege here, was proud of his physical prowess. "I have to end it," Izuku thought as he reached for his binding rope, but Ojiro's tail swung around his neck. "Oh," said Tsuyu. It was simple, but it was all anyone needed to say. Ojiro's tail covered more of his neck and spun him around completely before. "Wah!" Izuku was flipped over Ojiro's back and flipped above and in front of Ojiro's face, so he spun around to roundhouse the airborne boy. "Irk!" Ochako knew what happened next, and so did everyone else. But as Izuku flew, he stuck one arm out and caught it. "What dash?" "The dash." "Fuck." Both Bakugos spoke for their respective audiences as a sea of jaws dropped. Izuku's foot landed and stayed firm. Got it, he thought, and he brought his other foot down, and raised his other elbow and looked at Ojiro's knee. Fuck him up, Bakugo screamed at the screen. The audience laughed while looking at their Bakugo and the screaming one. What? He asked, obviously annoyed. Panic flashed Ojiro's eyes before his tail hit the ground to act as a third leg for support, so his unused leg would jump up and hit Izuku in his head. Both combatants recovered and readied themselves and at the same time snapped their heads at the other, walking defensively at each other. Ojiro's stance let him stand straighter. His hands were half closed with one towards his stomach, and the other pointing more outwards and level with his collar. His expression was expressing how well he was keeping collected in the fight despite the sweat and burn. Deku's stance made him crouch only slightly, an open palm out towards Ojiro and a fist set behind his side. He was actually smiling a bit even though the last blow caused him to bleed from his left temple. For him the adrenaline rush was the best part of any fight. Second was analyzing the opponent. This is the manliest thing ever. Kirishima breathed. They're both so into it. Toru squealed, who just so happened to be next to an astonished Ojiro. He was happy he and Midoriya were such a display. Ojiro yelled out, getting back the attention to him before he ran and aimed at his chest. Izuku blocked with both arms so Ojiro could push an open palm to his forehead and spinning kick to his stomach, sending him back. No Izuku. No Deku. Ochako and Inko cried out to him as a few viewers looked at them with a tang of happiness that those two were cheering him on so passionately. Izuku reeled from the blow and saw an empty elevator shaft caught his eye. It gave him an idea. Ojiro came at him once again attempting to finish it with what could only be described like this. He jumped up, spun to the side and came down with a devastating-looking axe kick as the background became white as red symbols appearing saying, Eagle's axe. Beautiful. Sweet. Holy. Manly. Izuku's training was the only reason why he didn't freeze up or do something stupid. He tossed a kunai which sliced his GI across his chest and drawing just enough blood to make him panic, but most importantly to mess up his form, causing his back to fall towards Izuku. Nice. No one knew who said that, but most agreed. Izuku caught his falling opponent and threw him into the elevator shaft. Hey! That'll really hurt him. Hagakure yelled in worry. Yeah. What I said. Toru cried. I think there is more to it. Ida replied, knowing Izuku as much as he does lets him understand his way of thinking better. Ojiro, being as nimble as he is, landed with his feet against the farthest wall as his tail gripped a pipe. Okay, let's try this, he thought, walking backward and up on the wall with his tail as some kind of anchor. I'll get back to Ida and we'll do this Toge dash. Not yet. Izuku yelled out valiantly from the hall as he leapt into the elevator shaft, and he landed a few feet below Ojiro and gripped a pipe with one hand and a kunai in the other. Oh, come on now. Ojiro thought as he dodged Izuku's sailing knife. This is my new favorite action movie. Shiro declared as no one argued with that statement. Ojiro tailwall moonwalked. I'm laughing my asses off typing that out. Up and away from Izuku, being on the far side of the building, the side they both were on was flat, saved for the pipes. Izuku acknowledged that and did the unexpected. Instead of wall jumping, crawling, or even launching more kunai, he King ran. What? All Might said /asked. That's right, he Naruto ran on the wall at a stunned Ojiro, who then leapt to the right wall. Izuku jumped to the left and then bound at Ojiro with a flying knee, who leapt towards him as well with a spinning kick. Ojiro's kick smacked Izuku to the back wall and he landed where Izuku bounded at him from. They're both so cool /badass. Hagakure and Jairu exclaimed from the screen room, on the edges of their seats along with everyone else. Fangirls. Aisawa muttered. Izuku recovered and bounced to the right as Ojiro jumped up to his level before they both launched at each other and clashed, before simply passing each other, and they repeated this, both increasing in speed and height at a super rapid pace before all that was visible was a green blur with spots of orange and a white blur with dashes of yellow like two bolts of lightning beating the stuffing out of each other. Uhi. Uzi. Both Bakugos didn't like either fighter, but this was still pretty damn cool, even though he'll never admit it. The camera went to a random floor way above the clashing fighters before Gaia. The audience jumped at the pained cry. Izuku flew out of the shaft doing a full flip and landing face down flat against the gray floor. "Ow!" they heard Izuku say into the ground. Ojiro used his tail to heave his body into the floor, revealing his state. Blood dripped from the right side of his chin to the corner of his lips. The long cut that ran on his chest was surrounded by his blood-stained GI. His foot was a bit shaky and his other foot was missing its boot. His tail had a bruise at its base and towards its hairy tip, shaking only enough so he wasn't dragging it. But he didn't look as if he was going to stop soon. He actually looked really pumped. Izuku shouted in a rage and struck the floor, causing a sizable dent and crack. The display of anger shook both audiences, all with thoughts that were similar to, "He's effing scary when he's mad." Izuku grudgingly got up, showing his state as well. His forehead had hair plastered on it from blood and sweat. His orange appendages were damaged enough to show what could be guessed as tan bracers with symbols on it. His knees were scraped to hell and back. "Hey, sensei," Shoji piped up, "I think it's getting a bit intense out there, right?" All Might turned to him and said, "While I agree, both of them show no real signs of slowing down, and they both are fighting fair and aren't going too far. If they do, I could stop them easily." "Are you sure, sensei?" Ochako asked. They're both deep in the moment. You do know that that's not him, right?" It asked. "Oh, hee. It's fine, young Uraraka." All Might assured her, but internally he and Inko were thinking of their protege/son's durability and willpower, no matter what. Hot damn, were they proud of him. Izuku and Ojiro stayed in their stances, panting and deciding for their next move while not daring to take their eyes off the other. Izuku took a particularly deep breath and spoke. "You know what? As fun as this was, I've got to tell you something." "The hell is he planning?" Bakugo said out loud. "I'm sorry, because now." Izuku looked Ojiro in the eyes as Ojiro approached in a near-perfect stance. "I'm mad." "What the foo dash?" Izuku pounced at Ojiro, prepping his left leg to strike, but Ojiro put his guard up. Izuku smirked and struck Ojiro on his unguarded right, bringing his opponent's defense as well as his own fist down and his fist down. Both audiences watched in pure awe and shock, but it was broken by. "Go Deku!" Ochako and Eri cheered. "Now," Izuku told himself as his gaze snapped to Ojiro's. His fist connected with his chest instantly, as did his other after it, and again, his fists spinning and striking like a murderous wheel. "Hot damn, /fuck." Both gyres said with every new strike threw Ojiro more and more off course before a strong right punch connected to his jaw as Izuku shouted, "Having fun yet?" And an equally powerful left to his thigh, forcing him on one knee. "Fucking hell." Bakugo breathed. He was brutal. He kinda liked it. Izuku reared his right arm as far as possible and brought it down with his strongest punch possible, downwards like the United States of Smash, so strong it bounced Ojiro into the air. All jaws were unsafe from the mass drop from the brutality and effort needed. "This ends." Izuku caught Ojiro's chest with a straight hand, his middle, ring and pointer fingers on his chest, as the background went white with more red symbols reading. 1/8 punch. /1/8 punch. 2 Minas, 2 Zeros and 2 Kaminaris yelled out. The in-screen ones simply recognizing the technique. The hand closed, pushing Ojiro forwards, only for Izuku to spin around and launch him into the wall to his right, which he rebounded off of. Izuku spun once more and connected his other foot to his stomach. The world seemed to slow for all viewers as Ojiro coughed blood onto his shin guard things. "Now!" Izuku shouted, and the force settled in, and Ojiro's back connected with the wall, but that wasn't it all. The wall cracked and broke as his body cut through the concrete like a stone to glass. He soared on and did the same to the next wall before. Hearing, "What th?" It was Ida. Ochako watched Ida cautiously as he held the nuke above his head, saying in his silly villain voice, "You can't even touch me, her dash." Boom, both heads darted at the left wall, hearing such a brutal sound. "No way," Kirishima said under his breath. Boom. A white projectile blew through the wall and at Ida. "What th?" he screamed as the boy made contact with him. Ochako stared in awe at the collapsed boys. She turned back at the hole in the wall, seeing Izuku who had rushed in while she observed the aftermath of his match. Izuku reached his hand behind his head, which was now missing his headband, and scratched it nervously. Hey Yuri Uraraka? Yeah Deku? Izuku used his free arm to point at the prop nuke. Could you grab the objective, please? Oh sure. Time skip. Really? Aizawa asked, apparently recovering from the scene. Well, everything except for this next part is exactly like what happens in your world. So shrugged. Ojiro walked home, his backpack strapped tight as he watched the lovely orange sky, and he sighed. Hey! Ojiro turned around to see Izuku running at him, waving a bandaged hand. Oh hi. Midoriya, was it? Ojiro asked as the green-haired boy stopped in front of him. Yeah. Izuku said cheerfully. Ojiro now noticed since they weren't hostile, the smaller boy had soft and friendly facial features, bright eyes, freckles on slightly chubbed cheeks, and a tiny nose. I wanted to ask you something. Ojiro raised a brow. What's that, Midoriya-san? Izuku smiled and asked, could we do that again sometime? I don't really spare against people aside from my sensei, and that was the most fun I've had in a while. Ojiro was inclined to agree. Most of the others relied on their quirks so much, they ignored the arts, and it was fun and refreshing to meet someone like himself. He's not wrong, Nizu spoke up. It's unwise to rely upon solely onto your quirks, but doing what Midoriya does could also be dangerous, but he had weapons to back him up. Take notes, children. That's why he's the principal. That would be excellent, Midoriya-san. Ojiro smiled back at the smaller boy. Great. We'd be perfect sparring partners. Izuku gave a thumbs up, showing he had the orange things still on. He looked down at his red shoes and orange leg things. What are those things he's wearing? Joas. Excuse me, Midoriya? Izuku's smile widened a bit with an aha. What are those things you wear? Are they bracers? These? No, these are my weights. Weights? Ojiro asked, unsure how to react. My sensei makes me wear them as training. Well, how much do they weigh? Ojiro asked. They could weigh that much if the boy was that agile and strong in the fight. Yeah, right? Sato added. Oh, how wrong he was. I forgot, but... Izuku looked from right to left and saw a metal bench to the near left. Alright, watch this. Izuku rolled up his right orange sleeve and unstrapped it. He then flung it onto the bench. As it went through the air, Ojiro wondered what was the point in doing. Kriya crack. The moment the weight hit the bench, it forced it to fold until it hit the concrete and broke the sidewalk. Okay, what the hell? Turiel. Fuck. Bakugo said, what the hell was this version of Deku? He was quirkless. Ojiro stood still as stone as the boy retrieved his gear from the utterly destroyed bench. And the screen went black, but Ojiro's thoughts were heard once again. This guy's gonna crush me. Mr. Sith? Nizu asked. Yeah. How did Midoriya save young Uraraka? Oh, that's simple. Sith took a second to sip a now manifested cup of tea. He took off all his weights. Well, Bakugo started. Language, said the teachers plus Ida, before he could even finish. That was... Sato started, unable to fathom the right words. Awesome, said Ochako. Beautiful, contributed Tsuyu. Brilliant, Todoroki added. Manly. You know who that was. Midoriya, Sith started with a smile and small chuckle, will always go plus ultra no matter where he is or what he's doing. Yeah. Eri and Mirio cheered. Sith smiled brighter at that and continued, now, I just want to show you guys something softer, less intense. What is it? Momoes. I'm going to show you an alternate world where Izuku is a comedian and telling the best joke I've ever heard. Sith finished with a dopey smile. Comedian? That sounds interesting, Tokoyami said while Dark Shadow gave a thumbs up. Sweet. Kaminari added to the approval of his friends. But first, Sith said as he snapped his fingers, to which Eri instantly fell asleep. Before anyone could ask, I needed to put her asleep because it's inappropriate, and don't worry, she won't wake up until I snap again. Everyone was ready and waiting. The screen brightened to show a much older Izuku, around 25 if they had to guess. I changed his age, Sumi. wearing black jeans and a matching leather vest. After that he looked normal aside from him standing on a dark wood stage with a background that was dark brown with a pattern of lighter brown hearts and eyes. He chuckled as he walked from the left to right of the stage. My mom, my mom gave me permission to cuss one time she gave me permission cuss. No, I didn't. Inko spoke up. Sith leaned over and whispered in her ear about the extreme personality changes to this world from her own, but didn't say it aloud to keep it a surprise. So I was in school being bad dash. Is that even possible for Midoriya? Toru asked. She had a point. My teacher saw me, told me. Izuku? She wrote a note, while mimicking her writing a note, and stapled the note to my chest and said, make sure your mother read the note. Oh hell no. Bakugo said. What's up? Kirishima asked. I'm just imagining my mom if that happened to me. But in reality, it had happened before and it was hell. I get home, my mom read the note and the note said, maybe if you showed your son a little attention at home, he wouldn't act like a fool in school. Ooh, /ooh. Both audiences groaned, but the one outside the screen wondered what was the difference between the two Mama Midoriyas. But Inko instantly thought, oh heck no. My mom read the note and said, let me tell you something, you go down there and tell her to mind her damn business, before I come down there and I beat her ass. All while, sassy chick snapping. Jesus Kriega. Kirishima laughed and was followed by others. Geez Ms. Midoriya hee. Midnight snickered as Inko hid in embarrassment. I said, Izuku started, his expression became more nervous and in character. You want me to say it like that or you want me to leave some things out? This is beautiful. Momo said while trying to calm herself for the punchline. What did I say? Izuku changed back to his mother's expression. I want you to tell her to mind her damn business before I come down there and I beat her ass. This jerked another wave of soft laughter from the crowd, even Inko. I know what you said, I just wanted you to know you're telling me to say the same thing. Izuku, if I have to tell you again, I'ma smack the shit out of you. Hee. Nizu turned to see Aizawa quickly hid his smirk. No, I got it. Okay, I got it. Okay, I got it. No, I got it. All right, okay, Izuku said, mimicking his trademark nervousness. Keep in mind it's a lot of pressure, all right? Keep in mind it's a lot of pressure, all right? My mom just gave me permission to go to school and cuss my teacher out. I didn't feel comfortable with the situation. So I wanted to practice. I wanted to go upstairs, I wanted to go over my lines. Why is this exactly something Deku would do? Ochako asked Ida, who was laughing into his elbow. I went into my room, I looked in my mirror and went, all right, Izuku said as he cracked his neck and rolled his shoulders. He pointed forwards like the mirror was right in front of him. My mom told me to tell Waiu. Oh God. Mirio was taking deep breaths and those close to him followed suit. To mind yo damn dash. Nope, it's too loud. Izuku acted like a real actor struggling with his lines. It's not believable, it's too loud. So I got it down and I decided to go to bed early, 'cause I got a big day tomorrow. The audience broke out in a new wave of laughter. WHWH. Why is this so good? All Might exclaimed, being more a statement than a question. I woke up, put on my pants and my shirt and I caught my bus. My friends see me and they get hyped. Like, Izuku threw up a hand and looked like he was cheering to emphasize his point. Deku's on the bus. Everybody look, Deku's on the bus. What's up, Aizu? And I go, hey, not today y'all, I got a lot on my mind today. Jesus. Jiru muttered to herself as she cupped her mouth to stop from laughing too loud. They go, what do you mean? And I say, I can't really get into it, all I can really say is, it's about to go down. Haha. Kirishima wrapped his arms around his stomach. She was like, what? And I said, look Yura, just be behind me when I walk into class. She said, all right, cool. Me. I walk into class and I see my teacher, Midnight Sensei. Ah damn. Midnight said as she hid her face in an open palm while chuckling as Lady laughed harder. She's greeting everybody. Good morning, hello, good morning, hello. Izuku said as he gestured at imaginary students. She sees me and goes, Midoriya, and I go Midnight Sensei. He said while looking an invisible sensei up and down. Another round of laughter rung through the audience. She says, "Did you let your mother read the note?" And I say, "If it." Laughter was held back horribly by wide grins and teeth. "Well, what did your mother say?" I turn to my friends and go. He turned his head to look back at an imaginary Uraraka. "It's about to go down." Wild laughter broke out except for the obvious exceptions of Aizawa and Katsuki. "Peepish. Hee. Gasped. Speaking of which, both of them were having really hard times holding it all in. "Wheel, my mom told me to tell you." Izuku presented with a mock bow / taunt. "To mind your damn motherfucking business, bitch." The absolute roar of laughter was deafening. The easier-to-laugh individuals, All Might, Kaminari, Zero, etc., were clapping and gasping for air through huge grins. The more mature ones were wondering why they were laughing as much as they were, while the edgy laughing ones tried hiding it, to no avail. Izuku pointed at the imaginary sensei and continued, "Look, stupid bitch." More people joined the crowd of easier to laugh. "Look, dumb teacher bitch." Inko and Nizu tried not to, they really did. 2 + 2 not knowing what fuck as bitch. Kaminari was pounding his chest to try to stop coughing from too much laughter. Crossed crying, "Down your back, fatfest bitch." WW what the hell? Katsuki was pinching himself to stop as everyone else fell deep into the trap that was Izuku's stand-up. It wasn't done. Izuku squatted down slightly as if the imaginary midnight was cowering and he still had something to say. "Long titty dash." Katsuki wheezed, like he lunged forward and wrapped his arms around his stomach, joining the rest. "And no nipple having, ass bitch." Haha, the shit, haha, the shit that was crazy, was my friends going, "Oh." He said she ain't got no nipples. I got a suspension and an ass whooping. My mom beat the shit out of me when I got home. I told you to say 2 cuss words. You said 76 of them. The laughter died down and the tears were wiped away. Kaminari got his breath back and Aizawa got his composure back. That, Mirio paused as he sat back up with the still sleeping Eri in on his knee, was gold. It took a wheelbarrow of willpower not to laugh, and the teachers, plus Ida's, need for order that calmed the crowd to an exceptional state. "Is everyone okay?" Celeste. "I think so." Nizu responded. "Great. Now this next one, for the students it could be educational." Sith saw the confusion spreading on his guests' faces. "I mean, it'll prepare you all for your future as heroes." The screen lit. The scene was peering through the glass roof of the mall. "Ooh, I love this place." Tur squealed. "Isn't this the place where Deku was attacked by Shigaraki?" Tako asked. Sith turned to her. "Yes, but this takes place a few months after the raid." The camera flew down to zoom in on the group of 20 that was Class 1A in casual clothing, drifting between stores in smaller groups. One group had Izuku, Ochako Ida, Todoroki, and Tsuyu. They all had decided to walk into a hero merch store, so of course, Izuku was going wild. "Sounds like Deku." He was wearing a light blue hoodie, black sweatpants, and of course, the red shoes. The sound of several girls giggling pried Izuku's eyes of a row of Present Mic t-shirts. He looked over and saw a trio of green-clad girls leaning in very close to each other. One in a black skirt and green sweater with her blonde hair in a ponytail turned to look at him but snapped back when she was discovered. "Oh, she probably thinks I was staring at her and I'm some creep." Izuku thought with a bit of a darker expression as he turned around to look at Bubble Girl swimming gear. "Excuse me?" The voice was feminine and had a strong accent, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Izuku turned his head to see the ponytail girl standing to his side. "Why yeah. You are a Midoriya, right?" she asked. With every word she seemed more and more sure of herself and excited. The increasing spark in her blue eyes was kinda cute, Izuku found. Oh hell no, surprisingly that thought didn't only belong to Uraraka. "Oh yeah, did you watch the sports festival?" Izuku turned to the girl fully with a bashful smile and a bit of a blush. Inko and All Might were both basking in the cute moment of embarrassment. "Well yeah, but I also watched the video about the USJ and the raid." She ended with a giggle. "That was recorded?" That was news to the audience as well. Keep in mind that this takes place in the future, Sith said before they could question it. It was all so cool. The fangirl squealed, causing Izuku to avert his eyes away from hers and finally saw the front of her sweater. It was him in his hero suit, punching the Nomu. But it was greatly exaggerated because of one reason. Instead of tanking the blow, the Noma's limbs curled to his center like it was All Might's US smash. I'd buy that, Kaminari told Kirishima while pointing at it. The more important question, Jiraiya started while raising her ear jack, is where she got it. He looks surprised to see it. And he did in fact. He was confused and then flattered, and then wondered if this is how All Might feels. Pretty much. Excuse me, Izuku started scratching the back of his head in nervousness. Oh, I'm Stacy. Oh, you're American? I've never been there before. Forgetting what he was about to ask. Yeah, me and my family are visiting my cousins. I'm really glad I could meet you. Oh. She turned around with a smile and waved the two watching girls over. This is my sister, Abby. Stacy introduced the first girl that came over. She was shorter but had the same blonde hair going to her shoulders. She had the same design on her t-shirt. Where were they getting those? And this is my cousin, Iryu. This girl was the same height as Stacy, which was about up to his eyes. She had black hair in a tight braid but had slightly smaller eyes, while still sharing the same light shade of blue. She was wearing black pants and a black shirt with a simple design, his mask. Come on now, Aizawa said. Where did they even? I want my own shirts, Aoyama said under his breath. The Class 1A students and Mr. Aizawa all just knew he wanted to wear himself. Well, it's nice to meet you all, Izuku said, his blush going as neon and bright as his shoes while the girls giggling came back with a vengeance. His eyes darted down to avoid looking at them when he saw. They all wore his shoes. Laughter broke out in the less sympathetic members. No chill? Kaminari asked Kirishima, who tried to stifle his chuckling. Excuse me, Izuku started pointing at Stacy's sweater. Where did you get those? They looked at each other, obviously confused by the question. Abby was the one to answer. The store Yudere has. I heard it was created only a few weeks ago, something about fundraising. Izuku immediately entertained himself with an image of Nizu in a gold suit cackling on a tower of yen. Nizu scratched his chin. It was a good idea. Principal Nizu, with all due respect, please don't. Tsuyu asked without looking at him. Sue, what now? Izuku really wasn't sure how to handle this. This was not what he's been trained for. To be honest, Present Mike started while scratching his cheek. It gets overwhelming at times. It's best to laugh it off. All Might and the rest of the pros nodded. Can we have your autograph? All three girls said at once. Oh, okay. Izuku reached in his pockets and found a pen, and when he looked back up, all three girls presented him with high branded covers for their phones. Izuku signed Abby's with the only thing he could think of, Plus Ultra. All Might nodded in approval while most others either smiled at the display of fanboyism. Izuku gave it back as Abby squealed and held it close to her chest. He took Stacy's and sketched his mask on it. When she took it, her blush went so hot he swore he saw steam coming from her face. Maybe that was her quirk. This is my favorite part, it's coming up, Sith told his audience. Izuku then took Iryu's and decided to draw a hand doing a peace sign, and as he was signing it, Are you single, Mr. Deku? He asked. Izuku accidentally activated One for All and snapped the pen like a twig. Oh hell no. His friend's jaws dropped as everyone else was reeling from a combination of shock and amusement. One for All. Tokoyami was the first one to acknowledge what his quirk was called. Shit. Well, think about it, Ochako piped up, One for All, like the Musketeers, chivalry, honor, and to protect everyone who can't protect themselves. She was actually loving that name now. And knowing Midoriya, he probably thought people would feel safer just by hearing it. Kirishima was now on the same boat as Ochako. It does sound like something he'd do. Tsuyu added. All Might did the quietest sigh of relief he could and looked up at Sith, who smiled reassuringly. Excuse me? Izuku asked while shaking and raising his voice a bit more than he'd like. I'm sorry, but I was asking because Abby here, Iryu said while gesturing to the shorter girl, hey, told me that the stopped that. Thought that the USJ video was so cool because you tried saving Froppy Dash. Ribbit. From that hand freak, while yelling, get away from her. She was going all-out fangirl while mimicking his smash to an invisible Shigaraki to her right. He looked back at that moment with mixed feelings. On one hand, it was absolutely horrifying and emotionally draining. Word, said Mineta and Aizawa in unison. On the other hand, it was a great learning experience. Just about everyone got to show off their survival, leadership and fighting skills, and as a bonus, after that he and Azui dash. I've told you it's Tsuyu. We aren't even on the same planet as him right now. How would he hear you? Katsuki argued. We're friends. Apparently, they were talking the entire time he was thinking because when he stopped he heard. Well, I ship it. You ship it? What's that? Izuku tilted his head to the side a bit like a puppy. Izuku /Deku, you adorable, oblivious schmuck. No way. Kirishima said for the second time today. This time he was struggling not to smile at Izuku's predicament. Tsuyu was watching at her feet swing with a blush. Ribbit? The girls started giggling more. It's nothing, Deku-kun. Hell. No. Have a good day. All three girls wished him. Izuku turned around and walked out of the store where he saw his friends waiting. He walked towards a turned-around Ida while thinking about his conversation with his first fangirls. More are on the way. Present Mike added while sipping a cup of soda. Hey, Ida-san, you won't believe what just happened? Izuku saw that Ida was moving around a lot like he was flustered or trying to get away, so he tilted his neck to see the small and skinny girl in front of him. She wore a plain red t-shirt and black jeans. No big deal, right? Well, he looked up at her gray baseball cap, and it was a picture of Tenya and Tensei in their hero suits with thumbs up. No way. Kaminari was in a small amount of awe and grinned. Well, that Abby girl said it was a whole store, right? Geez. Izuku then decided he was busy, and looked around and was actually impressed with what he saw. First, he saw Yu kneeling to talk to two little kids, around the same age as Eri, who wore froppy headbands / goggles. Ribbit. Then he saw Uraraka and Todoroki trying to avoid talking to a small group of teens in hoodies based on their hero costumes. Uraraka laughed nervously while Todoroki burying his face in his hands. Far behind them, next to a railway, was a slightly cowering Koda in the face of a leash Tanuki in an anime costume. The real Koda seemed to think his alternate self had the right idea. He looked back in the store and saw that Mina was chatting with some guy in a pinky cap, and for once she looked like the less embarrassed one. Aye. Izuku kept this up as he found out that everyone was experiencing this, but the best part was that he looked to his left and saw Katsuki literally sprinting to avoid a flock of girls with bows in their hair in the form of Katsuki's mask explosion thingamabobs, who then ran past Shoji, who was taking a selfie, a middle school-aged boy. At least I'm not the only one. Izuku took a look into his wallet and decided to look a little longer. At least that was the plan. When he started to head to Todoroki and Uraraka to save them. Thank you, Midoriya. Todoroki said under his breath while Uraraka nodded. At least he would, but it seemed like the universe materialized about 10 fans next to him. What am dash? Mad bouquet of darkness. The other 18 students finished, to the slight confusion to everyone else besides Aizawa. Tokoyami flushed and turned back to the screen. That's my line. Izuku was sure he was going to get bombarded in a matter of moments, but he was saved by the bell. Well, it wasn't really a bell. It was more of a dai-e. Hey-a-maha-ha. Surprisingly enough, it wasn't Katsuki that screamed that. What a shock. Shut it half and half. Shut up, Bakugo. Mr. Aizawa snapped. Izuku's gaze snapped over to a stampede of civilians, who had a large black mass following them. But activating full cowling? I thought it was called One for All? Chaco asked. I think it's a technique, Ida answered. Izuku pounced on a store's sign and saw the threat. A truck-sized scorpion with pitch-black plates, a stinger that looked like it could puncture a tank, paired with pincers large enough to grab several people at once. Screams. That's all I have to say. Screaming. Its massive pincer swung back and aimed at a young boy. He looked back and screamed while the scorpion beast laughed. So it was a human with some kind of transforming quirk. His analysis skills are sharp, Nizu said. I sat next to him at the sports festival. It was almost scary how quickly and how much he was writing, Kirishima added. The weird thing is it said number 14 on it. If you want, Sith piped up, I can show you a world where his skills are displayed fully. No one seemed to have objections. The pincer swung around, but a mass covered in green lightning slammed into the side of its head, sending it several feet back with a pained groan. Nice save, Deku. Go Midoriya, followed Mirio and All Might. The scorpion recovered quickly, decimating a bench along the way. Then it reared its disgusting head and beady eyes at Izuku. I'm scared. Hold me. Mineta leaped at Tsu's chest, and the moment he was at arm's length, her tongue flew out and bashed his head so hard it knocked him out cold on the floor. Those are reserved, great boy. Tsu thought with a combination of victory and condescendingness. Izuku put one arm in front of the cowering child and stood in a combat stance. Whatever this thing could do, he had to react the right way. Such a tiny little wannabe. The scorpion's features were disgusting and graphic up close. It swung its stinger high up like he was deciding on the exact moment to kill him. Oh, you brought more little snacks. Wonderful. Izuku looked back and saw that Kirishima, Ida, and Sato, who was pulling a cake tray for fuel along the way, were running up to his sides. He looked past them and saw the others either catching up, Todoroki, Uraraka, Kaminari, and Yoai Orozu, while the other 12 were evacuating citizens. He smiling knowing that he had such a well-organized and powerful team. Class 1A, the consensus ones, that is, beamed at the praise while Aizawa smirked under his scarf. Run to the people helping everyone else in the back, kid, Izuku instructed the child. They'll save you. He nodded shakily, but nonetheless he ran past the 3 heroes and to the evacuation crew of the class. Well, Izuku turned back to the scorpion as the first 3 came up and stopped. I didn't expect that many of you. I'll end this quick. He yelled as his left mighty pincer swiped at them. Izuku and Ida had jumped back, while Sato and Kirishima leaped at the pincer and caught it. That all ugly? Kirishima yelled as he strained, and a smirking Sato stopped the attack in its tracks. Manly, /nice. The real Kirishima and Sato applauded themselves. Hell no. The scorpion raised his other pincer to pound them from above, but in doing so he raised it so high that its armpit was exposed, so naturally Ida ran in and kicked it with such momentum he was forced to crash it back down. Stay off them. Ida yelled as he directed another kick at the black armor. Get him, Prez. Mina cheered to Ida's embarrassed flush. His foot bounced off with a tink. Damn. The scorpion relieved Sato and Kirishima and spun around to whip Ida with his pincer, but failed as Ida bounced off it and gave him a spinning blow to his disgusting mug. Get bent, bug bitch. Ha. Katsuki cheered. Did that even count as one? Everyone wondered. It reeled once again and moved back enough to get all 4 heroes in front of him. So now he's facing away from the entrance, away from people. That's good. Izuku realized. Annoying whoa w. The scorpion's feet froze, as did the ground around him. The cavalry's here. Damn right we are. Kaminari rooted. Since he couldn't see, the scorpion swung its tail wildly to hit anyone or anything that would cause the flanking heroes to slip up. With a cry of fury, the scorpion hit the ground with his tail so hard it did 2 things. 1. It shook the very ground beneath them. 2. The ice cracked and freed him. Spread out. Izuku shouted. If they surround him, they could find ways to get under the shell. That is a good idea, Nizu said to no one in particular. And everyone thought so because he saw Todoroki running a large circle around the scorpion, creating a ring of ice while Ida skated behind him. Sato and Kirishima provided cover by hopping on each side of his neck, while a lightning bolt struck its tail. And he swore he saw a bench float towards the ceiling. Izuku felt pride in his class. Stop it. Jairu mumbled while flushing. Momo was the only one to notice that but pretended not to. He decided to take action by jumping up and kicking it straight in its baseball-sized eye. Yeah. Present Mike screamed. Damn it, Mike. Izawa said under his breath. The scorpion screamed and roared in pain as he bucked and headbutt Izuku, Kirishima, and Sato to the ground. Izuku recovered and looked around the ice ring. It was big enough to be this thing's playpen, but more importantly, each one of the remaining Class 1As stood on top of it, waiting to enter. Okay, it's official. Izuku looked up at his reinforcements, from Bakugo flaring his explosions, to Tokoyami and Dark Shadow staring the thing down, to Jairu who twirled her jack with one finger and smirking at the poor sap. What's official? Todoroki asked no one but the Izuku on the screen. I love these guys. Izuku smiled broadly. Jairu choked as everyone ranged from blushing to hiding to smiling as broadly as he. Fuck, that was cute, Jairu couldn't help but think. Wait, what? Get that bug, bitch? Katsuki screamed like a war cry. Yeah. And by the 2s and 3s, the students hopped in the ring and shot, swung, or stomped at whatever they could reach. It's good, but to do anything worthwhile, we'll have to peel his armor. Gah! Izuku's thoughts were interrupted by a sailing Kirishima who crashed into the ice wall. It's okay, Midoriya-sen, Kirishima said as he saw the green-haired boy rush up to him. All right, but I need you for something. Kirishima looked at the scorpion to Izuku rapidly and anxiously. Ugh, what is it? Izuku pointed at its back. If we can peel the armor off, we'll have a target. Izuku watched as the anxiety was wiped from Kirishima's face instantly. I like it. But how do we do that? Boom. Die, prick. Izuku looked at the scorpion for a second, watching it thrash around and trying to make sense of the fog-like rain of attacks and projectiles. Just stand up and let me ask you something. Kirishima bolted up and leaned in a bit. Yeah? Have you ever thought about using your quirk as a... Izuku did a motion with his hands while trying to remember the word cannonball. Oh no, Mina said under her breath. Oh no. Kirishima yelled as he realized his fate. Uraraka stood up. Deku no. Yes. Katsuki felt a hint of pride in Deku. Wait, Wtish. Izuku grabbed the hem of his shirt as Kirishima hardened. Izuku looked back at the scorpion. Shoji and Dark Shadow ran at each pincer, but it swiped back at them, opening its weak spot wider. Gotcha! On behalf of what Midoriya's about to do, Kaminari leaned closer to Kirishima and put a hand on his shoulder. Sorry. Rioting. Izuku took a step forward and channeled one for all in his arm at 8%. Focus. The scorpion swung and knocked down Aoyama. And released 20%, it rose its great ugly claw above the paralyzed boy. No! All voices that weren't too nervous to talk yelled. Now! Smash! Izuku flung Kirishima at high speeds, and as the scorpion's claw was halfway down, the living bullet that was Kirishima crashed into its back with a sickening crack. Aoyama sighed heavily while wiping his forehead. Dieu merci! The scorpion leaped back on its last pair of legs screaming, Phew-uck! Kirishima fell behind it as it bucked and jumped wildly, trying to comprehend the pain while attacking. I just opened a weak point. Izuku informed his classes. They looked at him and back, and saw where a black plate of armor like a tank's, saw yellow skin. They watched in awe and respect at the two brawlers' efforts. The scorpion shivered and shook, then it looked up at the 20-maned crew ready to take it down. They heard it gulp in fear. That means, idiots. Katsuki bellowed, 2FK it's shit up. You have got to work on that language. Shove it, Four Eyes. Deku. Izuku looked up and saw Uraraka, wearing a blue and yellow striped sundress, falling at him. The light from above made her stick out like a sore thumb. What the? When did she? Why's she look like an angel from here? Why am I thinking that? Uraraka would have replied to anyone who tried talking to her, but she was floating in the small dome of the theater. Oh, Deku! Channeling one for all in his legs, shot up like a rocket at his angel. Uraraka squealed from her hands. And caught her bride style. Mr. Sith. Momo spoke up. You're torturing Uraraka. she said while pointing at a squirming, zero-gravity Uraraka with a worried expression mixed with amusement. And as he landed, she pointed up and another falling mass. It was a bench. "Oh yeah!" Kaminari cheered. The bench flew through the air and spun like a top, aiming straight at the scorpion. "Get fucked!" Katsuki roared, profanity aside, everyone agreed. Growl! The scorpion's legs failed him as the bench pierced its back. He screeched and squirmed, but nonetheless he forced himself back up, screaming every profanity and insult it knew. "I never thought I'd think this, but can you please just die?" Katsuki nodded in approval. Uraraka wasn't deterred. She used the hand that wasn't wrapped around Deku and yelled, "It's made of metal," at Kaminari. "Maybe you aren't so bad, round face." Kaminari was at the edge of his seat as he, as well as everyone else, knew damn well what was going to happen. Discriminate? Kaminari leaped on his neck and crawled as he swiped, whipped, and missed with his tail. He latched onto the bars that was slightly coated in yellow, pus-like blood. "EW. That's fucking nasty." Katsuki's face twisted in disgust. "Discharge." Electricity coated his entire form, but more importantly, so was the bench. Greawa. Please, tell me that thing's done. Mineta yelled over the noise. Now we all know this class isn't that lucky. Damn it. Katsuki's fist pounded his armrest. The scorpion tail rammed into the bench, splitting the bars and sending Kaminari back in fear. Damn. The scorpion gave one good yank and pulled it halfway out. Brats. And with that pull, he threw it out of the bounds of the ice arena. Gra! And with that as his war cry, he rushed at the group, not at one person, but in the center trying to grab someone as quickly as possible. Up here. The scorpion looked up and saw a soaring Ojiro, who introduced his knee to his eye, for gentler terms. "I think we need a small lesson," Present Mike started, "on learning how to chill out. He's the one / prick who can't give up." Ojiro and Katsuki said at the same. Present Mike made a can't argue with that face. Ojiro bounced off as Sato and Shoji delivered a double uppercut, and as his body was sent up. Adu Ikyum. Aoyama blasted a large laser at his exposed chest. The real Aoyama laughed loudly, and seeing their confused expressions, "Oh sorry hee I said, farewell the scum. Hee. Nice one Aoyama-san." Mina gave him the thumbs up. "Oh ho, it's my pleasure." He gave a small bow. The force of it sent the scorpions back into the ice wall, slouching. "Hey, Todoroki!" Izuku yelled. He pointed at the scorpion when he had his attention. "Keep us going." Izuku then started sprinting while cocking back his right arm. "What's he doing?" Aizawa asked. He knew his problem child just enough to know that he won't like it. "I have trust in young Midoriya." All Might said he also probably wouldn't like what was going on, but hey, it was Midoriya, it's just who he is, and he wouldn't change that for anything. 15%, Todoroki followed by Izuku's left. What did he mean? "I have a theory, but I'm afraid what'd happen if it's true," Ida said. "Detroit." Izuku jumped up and aimed at the scorpion's tan chest. "He doesn't mean..." Smash! Izuku collided with the scorpion and shattered the ice wall like ice. "Smooth." Sith taunted. Izuku brought his left hand around and grabbed his chest plate. Todoroki now knew what he meant. He shot a smooth sheet of ice in front of them, causing Izuku and the scorpion to slide farther while picking up a bit of speed. "Oh geez." Ida covered his face in his palms, while Ochako, who had now come down, stared intently at the screen. Todoroki set his right side alight and skated while supplying a steady stream of ice until he got in front of them. Meanwhile, Izuku crouched down and punched him again. "Beat his ass, Midoriya." Mina and Kaminari cheered. And again, this time the ice underneath them cracked, and again. "End him." Katsuki commanded. 17%. Izuku leaped off the scorpion's chest and spun midair. "Manchester." Izuku raised his foot above his head in an impressive display of flexibility. The scorpion opened its uninjured eye and looked up at what he guessed to be a green lightning bolt. I think it's interesting that one for all isn't actually strength, but some kind of energy source, Ida said to Ochako. Izuku descended quickly, his leg shaking slightly. Smash! The scorpion's head was forced into the ground while Izuku jumped off and rolled several feet away. If that son of a bitch isn't done, I swear to like, come on. Katsuki shouted. The scorpion's legs and pincers swayed from side to side in unison, each swing rocking his whole body. He roared in frustration and swung his pincer so hard that it flipped him over and cracked the ground it landed on. Am so done with you brats. The scorpion swung each pincer up and down like it was throwing a temper tantrum, shaking the earth beneath them and breaking the ground. Katsuki shook his head in frustration and disappointment. Fucking bug bitch. Bang! A flash of light detonated in the scorpion's face. Momo held Russian nesting dolls in her hand while producing more by the second. Bang! Two more to the face. The scorpion screeched horribly at Momo, flaring his tongue like a large snake. Yoa Momo-chan! Tur yelled. Then Mina ran up and flung acid at the rope-like organ. The burning acid. Cut through it instantly. I think I'd feel bad, Mina said, but not giving up at this point, he's just asking for it. The scorpion swung, Mina was able to dodge, but an audible smack was enough to know someone wasn't fast enough. Toru! The girl screamed. The camera followed Toru as she sailed backward. Apparently the wind knocked out of her lungs, but then a net made of tape was set across the hall, and when Ciro felt the spring he muttered, "Got her." A huge sigh of relief passed through the audience like a wave. Ciro pulled the net towards him, and he put his hand on her forehead and brought it down until he reached her lips. He waited for only a second, then a single ragged breath shook from her throat. Toru clawed her armrests in stress. She needs help. Ciro's head darted all around, for a safe place like that sign. It was pushing outwards on top of the store's glass like a baseball cap. Perfect. Excellent work, young Ciro. Nizu praised. Ciro looked away at the compliment and scratched his head. Ciro. Ciro looked down and saw Izuku slide to Toru's other side. I think she needs help breathing. Ciro then pointed to the sign, Midoriya, if you can take her up there, I'll get everyone to keep that thing off you. Izuku, now holding Toru, nodded and leaped on top of a light pole, and then to the sign. It was very narrow, but it'd do. Now this, I was trained for. Izuku put his forearm on her forehead and trailed to her lips, then put one finger on its side like he was keeping tab of it. He then put one on her neck and with one finger, trailed to her chest. He gulped, but he still wouldn't let go of his determined expression. I'm not saying I don't trust him, Toru started, but Mr. Sith, do I die? Oh no. Sith shook his head and turned back to the screen. If you were to die, Sith stopped for a second before letting off a small laugh. If you died right there in his arms, then everyone else would be able to go home. Because if you died, Midoriya would tear that thing's tail off and slit its throat with it. Toru felt better in a terrified sort of way. Izuku started pumping the invisible girl's chest. He couldn't see her, but he could tell she still wasn't there yet. After a few more, he decided to try step 2. He went over to where his finger used to be, checked for her lips again and, Izuku brought his lips down to hers and blew. While this was normal for most, Ochako felt a tang of jealousy before deciding that Deku was too nice of a person and too good a hero to let her suffer. Surprisingly, Jiraiya thought the same thing, before wondering why she felt jealous in the first place. Oh geez, what did you do to me, Midoriya? Izuku got off for a new breath to share. And again. And again. And again. And again. Izuku jumped back a bit when he heard the girl breathe again. Ha yeah. Present mixed loud cheer overlapped the others. Oh geez. Toru sighed in relief. I owe you for that, Midoriya. Izuku tried to calm his racing heart while breathing through his accomplished smile. Thanks. No problem. Izuku looked at where he laid Toru and turned around while pointing at his. Do you need help getting down? Yeah. She flung her arms around his neck. Ready? Izuku jumped down and kept crouching when he landed to let her crawl off. Thanks, Midoriya. Izuku turned to her voice and gave her a thumbs up. Hey Toru. Momo was behind a bench for cover with Jairu, who was taking the torn-apart floor and chucking them at the scorpion's yellow opened hide. I told you, Sith said, if you want to kill with Midoriya around, you'll have to kill him first. Izuku looked around. The scorpion was moving around, exhausted to a point where he might pass out. Class 1A, on the other hand, was running circles around him, firing off everything they had, from purple balls to pillars of flames. His defeat is inevitable. Tokoimi said, We only need one more push. Kirishima cheered. Izuku pounced on his head, and when his tail went to swat him, Izuku jumped back off, making the scorpion hit himself. Laughter broke out around the scorpion, making it seethe in anger even more. Ochako, who was reaching for a large slab of concrete, was seen by the scorpion. Izuku saw this. No! Uraraka, /Ochako. The girls plus Ida yelled in worry. He whipped his tail back and forth. Think Deku! He mentally yelled at himself. It slammed into the ground, forcing the class to their backs and knees, including Ochako. Midoriya will do something, right? Mirio asked while Eri held her collar to her mouth. No! The scorpion raised his stinger rapidly. It barely needed a second to aim. Oh dear! Midnight's hand squeezed her armrest so tight her knuckles became white. It shot down like a bullet, and time seemed to slow down. Ochako saw the stinger's tip shine in the daylight. It was too fast for her to dodge. Uraraka! /Ochako. Ochako's eyes shut tight, preparing for whatever came next. Fuck! Katsuki's immediate reaction. The others slowly lowered their heads in. The pain never came. Huh? Toru asked, wiping the tear from her eye. Ochako opened one eye halfway, blinked and opened them both. She gasped at the image before her. Fucking W.A. Katsuki wouldn't believe it. He refused. Ochako started tearing up faster than before. In front of her was the form of Izuku. His arms went limp as his body was raised by the steel-like stinger piercing the side of his stomach like a fish. Red was coating his back and spreading like a plague. Izuku! Inko screamed. All Might put his hand around his mouth. He didn't trust himself to say something he wouldn't regret. Dis Deku? Izuku looked back. His eyes were filled to the brim with pain. I'll kill that fucker, Katsuki muttered. Kirishima looked at him like he just committed a great atrocity. I meant that bug bitch. It was. He wheezed as something else entered his eyes. She couldn't tell what it was through her tears. The only thing. She recognized it now. It was his pride, how he looked at his hero license for the very first time, how he looks at the people he helps and saves. It was heroism. I thought of. Shink the scorpion yanked his stinger out of his body. Time slowed once more as he was pulled towards the scorpion, as blood was shot from his mouth and wounds. Deku /Izuku /Midoriya no. Deku /Izuku /Midoriya, no. Die. The scorpion's tail whipped around and smacked Izuku out of the air. He shot like a bullet at the thing he was aimed towards, the glass entrance about 80 feet away. Izuku, with the only control he had left, looked up and saw what was about to happen. Mother fu dash. Fresh. Nana no no. Jairu was shaking her head back and forth as if she could shake away her sight. The glass ripped through his back as the outside light rushed to the camera and his form so suddenly, the light almost looked heavenly. Then it dimmed with every inch he fell. Bang. His back hit the roof of a police car, causing more blood to erupt from his lips. Ida drew a shaky breath while covering his mouth. His limp form bounced slightly off the hood, denting it as he rolled face down into the pavement. His ears were ringing. He heard voices. He thinks they were asking him to get up, but he couldn't tell. Izuku turned his head enough so he could see the rows of people watching him. Failed. Bullshit. Katsuki roared, and for once everyone agreed. Inside the mall, the scorpion was staring at the hole in the glass. He panted and panted. Good, now that he's gone, I can dash. Then he looked back at the other 19 heroes. He's so screwed. Sato said under his breath. Because when he did, he saw no less 21 pairs of eyes, Shoji and Dark Shadow, Filled to the brim with hatred, if looks could kill, by now he'd be cut into 16 stitches by now. Katsuki was livid, his palms sparking and popping with tiny explosions. This prick dies now. Then by all means, Katsuki snapped his head at the voice. It was Ida, kill him. Damn Ida. Dark Shadow jeered. Then shot off like a rocket, each swing of his legs stretching as far as he could, until Recipro. Ida stood a short distance from his chin. Burst. Ida did a wide backflip fueled by his engines. The result was such a powerful kick, he forced the scorpion off a pair of legs. Ida seemed to float for a second, and everyone took this as the signal, kill this bug. No one messes with one of you kids, huh? Empty Lady asked them rhetorically. No / hell no / I'd say not. Aizawa put his scarf on his face to avoid showing his pride. Kirishima and Sato took advantage of its weakness, ran up, and did a double uppercut to his chest, sending him off his next pair of legs. Momo and Gyre manned cannons. Bzzz a lightning bolt to the face. Go! Katsuki jumped up and blasted his chest. 2. The scorpion fell back. Hell! Another one to the face and the scorpion and it fell to its back. Hey! Kirishima! Kirishima looked over at Zero, who was wrapping its back right leg and jerked his head at it. I just want to say, Zero started, I don't feel bad about what about to happen. Kirishima ran to it, formed his hands in an X, and body slammed it. And with a grotesque "hidike" sound, it was off. Instead of screaming, the scorpion groaned and growled. The damn thing's a punching bag now. Todoroki said bitterly, did he feel bad? No, that's what it gets for hurting his friends. Shoji ran up to the two and said something, but the noise of the scorpion drowned them out. But he must have told them some kind of plan, because they and everyone else went and took cover in the closest stores with either smiles or anger etched on their faces. The scorpion swayed and jerked onto his belly before shakily getting to now 5 feet. My second favorite part. Sith said with a smile. All that stood in front of the scorpion, he saw, were Katsuki and Todoroki. The scorpion panted. Todoroki turned to Katsuki and nodded. Oh, fuck it. The scorpion roared as he rushed towards the two. Todoroki put his right arm to the ground and sent a sheet of ice at the scorpion's feet. Damn it. The ice had traveled too far to step out, and as his tail raised to free himself. Not this time. Todoroki let a huge boulder of ice, that it froze him completely. Yes. Katsuki cheered someone else on, for the second time today. Weird. Bakugo now. Katsuki pointed both his hands at the ground and lifted off, then he started maneuvering in the air like he was dodging rockets while heading at the frozen scorpion. Howitzer. Flash freeze. Todoroki lit his left side on fire completely and aimed at the frozen scorpion. No such thing as overkill. Kaminari said. Katsuki was now spinning inside a smoking tornado. Impact / heatwave. Izuku groaned, he closed his eyes. Breath in and out. He opened his eyes and tilted his head up as best as possible. He saw a small horde of people staring at him, held back by police officers. He breathed in, he breathed out, the motion was rattling his ribcage. He put his hands to the ground and bit his lips. He can relax, we've got it, Class 1A thought. All Might had a hard time smiling in pride while Inko was wiping away tears. Kosi-kamstan. Izuku lifted himself up just enough to lay on his knee. He set his foot down and groaned in pain. Stop it, Deku. Midoriya. Just stay down. It's okay. He put both feet on the ground and covered his knees with his hands. He inhaled so sharp he barely got oxygen. Izuku's gaze darted to the mall. A sinister red-orange glow erupted from its depths. That was for you, Deku / Midoriya. Todoroki and Katsuki thought in unison. Izuku ducked behind the car. The scorpion was shot outside, breaking the front of the mall completely. The crash was so violent, the news chopper from above jerked away. The scorpion went limp as he crashed onto the concrete. Screams rounded through the crowd as the disgusting creature was on display. Haha. Yeah. Present knew it done, so did everyone else. Grr. Oh fuck off. Katsuki screamed at the beast. His tail pierced the ground and turned over. Out of the building's smoke, the remaining of Class 1A approached, looking down at the scorpion, speaking of which. He was shaking, shivering, and wobbling out of control. His loss of a leg and overload of pain gave it no chance of focus. Am I friends? Izuku leered over the hood. He was furious. He's done. Toru said that thing was screwed. If my friends... Izuku grabbed his hoodie's shoulder. Need me? Izuku tore the whole thing off, putting everything on display. Hot. I'll leave that to the imagination. Then, Izuku wiped the blood from his forehead and lip. I won't fail. Izuku clenched his fist as his arm turned bright yellow while red energy-like veins took form. Midoriya. All Might clenched his scar. Do it, he mumbled commanded to his student. My friends? Izuku walked around the hood and stared at his pulsing right arm. Before the scorpion could move or make a plan. Hey! It snapped its ugly face at the injured Izuku. Does any of you know what surrender even means? Lady asked. You use Christmas trees to masturbate, fuck off. Empty Lady kept her lips shut. I want you Izuku then pointed at the scorpion, to learn one thing. Izuku crouched down slightly. He was about to rush the thing. Everyone gulped, either in worry or anticipation. Don't ever fuck. Izuku roared at him. Yes. Katsuki and All Might felt like dotting fathers. With you kids. Izuku started sprinting. 100%. The scorpion did the same. Detroit. The scorpion raised its pincers. Ochako tried to run past Ida, but he put his arm in front of her. He trusted that Izuku knew what he was doing. Oh damn. Kaminari, Kirishima, and Siro cheered. Izuku slid, his arm still holding in its power. The scorpion opened his mouth to screech. Smash. Smash, the class yelled right along with him, much to the awe of the adults. The effect was near instant. First, his fist connected with the scorpion's forehead, condemning it. Kill it, the... Katsuki and Ochako cheered. His backplate split, and his exposed and stabbed one gushed out a torrent of blood. Cheers rang through the crowd. And lastly, he flew off Izuku's uppercut into the horizon, like the Nomu to All Might. Either time actually stood still, or no one was willing to break the moment. Izuku stayed in his pose, but his arm was broken with his skin turning a familiar purple hue. Ha. Everyone turned to Katsuki, who threw his head back and covered his mouth. Izuku let his arm drop and turned to his class, who all sported dropped jaws. Izuku scratched the back of his head with his left arms while using his widest smile. Then he felt something odd. He turned around to the crowd, which was made of passerby, students, and the people from the mall, including his fan club, drenching in nosebleeds. Oh geez. Asterisk time. Skip asterisk. 2 weeks later. 6:25 p.m. With the mall under reconstruction, the Scorpion Man in a coma. Get fucked. And Izuku had fully recovered, physically at least. Oh no. Ochako suddenly got very angry. The grilling recovery girl gave him still haunted him. Okay. Kako sighed. But when he came back, he instantly had a plate full of Sato's beautiful cookies in his face. Damn straight. Sato looked smug. Koda's bunny wrapping itself around his foot. Ooh. Koda flushed. For some reason, a bowl of soba gestured to him. Class 1A's eyes turned to Todoroki. Even Kacchan looks excited to see me, Izuku thought as Katsuki wore a less foul expression than normal. And all the while Ida called for order. In all honesty, this was exactly Izuku expected his homecoming to go. And he'd never ask for something else. Damn it. Kirishima hit his own knee. What's wrong, Kiri? Kirishima gestured broadly at the screen. He'll make me cry. Right then, Ida cleared his throat and saw Izuku look him right in the eyes. We had a plan for when you came back, Midoriya-kun. Izuku took a cookie and bit into it. Chocolate chip chum. Sato took a mental note. Yes, that Ida-san? Ida gestured broadly to the other 18 classmates. We wanted to visit the merch store in you today. Izuku's smile brightened through a mouthful of cookie. Cute. Time skip. And, half hours later. 7:55 p.m. The teacher's lounge was filled with the staff, a precious few Sundays where nothing was going on. See Ases? All closed. Patrol? Done. Security checked? Double-checked. Merch shop stocked. Triple-checked by midnight, for the last 2 weeks for some reason, but no one argued. Hotel? Trivago, Kaminari snickered while Kirishima, Shiro, and Mina pretended to cough. They all didn't agree at first, but that shop pulled in enough funding for fun things, like a nicer couch and coffee machines. Aizawa was suddenly on board with this idea. Bang. The phrase, "Oh geez," went through the audience like a wave. Hey! All eyes turned to the door, which Katsuki knocked out of the way with his foot, and he was carrying a body pillow? I don't like where this is going. Mina said to no one. Can you all explain what the fuck? Katsuki started walking towards a table and slammed. The pillow hit the table, but the camera was aimed away from the image. This is? The staff peered over the table. All Might vomited blood. Present Mike spit out his soda. What the hell is it? Midnight hit her face. And Nizu and Aizawa went stone-faced. Snipe covered his eyes and said, "Oh Lord." And 13 considered vacuuming her brain away. The hell? Katsuki's eyes darted between their faces. The camera looked down. It was a body pillow of a face-up, blushing, hug-embracing in hero uniform, Izuku. Aizawa was suddenly off-board this idea. Fuck no. Katsuki suddenly got up. The boys and Inko were having a severe case of second-hand embarrassment, while the girls felt a small trickle of blood from their noses. Damn. Who the foo dash? Kachin. Stop. The real Izuku was bright red and hanging off the door hinges. Wait. So. Approved. This? It took a moment, but Midnight raised her hand. Lady was cackling while Midnight hid behind her knees. That's why she's only been checking it. It's sold. She shrugged while looking straight down. Oh, you bitch. Katsuki mumbled. I mean, it got us that coffee machine. She pointed at a dark brown, silver-trimmed coffee machine, so apparently a lot of people bought those pillows because that thing looked expensive. Holy shit. Katsuki looked down. How many would they have to sell? How many of those fangirl perverts were eyeing Deku while he fought for his life? Suddenly the machine started floating, its cord was yanked from its socket, and the sound of bare feet smacking against the floor. Hagakure/Hagakure. I got it. I got it. The voice from the coffee machine squealed. Katsuki pointed at the pillow while dragging it out the door. His ass our coffee. Kirishima and Kaminari were leaning against each other for support. They will not laugh. The office was in silence before All Might regained his composure. We deserved that. Midnight? Nizu turned to her. I promise it won't happen, sir. Izuku and Katsuki walked in a few minutes after Toru. She set the new machine on the counter, as Todoroki and Shiro bowed down to it like a deity. The nectar of gods. Todoroki, Shiro, and Aizawa said at once. Hey! Izuku turned to Katsuki. I'll burn this shit then I'm going to bed. Oh, okay Kachin. Good night. Izuku walked over to join Ochako and Ida. Katsuki stood there for a second and gave the smallest hint of a smile. Ah, there it is. Mina said. Fuck off, raccoon eyes. Katsuki dragged the pillow behind him and walked through the dim hall and to his room, then closed and locked the door behind him, the only light coming from his lamp. He lifted the pillow to eye level and squinted. It was damn creepy how accurate this thing was. Well, that pervert of a teacher has his pictures so... Exactly. But Kugo, please. Ida ninja chopped the air. Katsuki dropped it to the ground and shoved it under his bed. Hey! What the hell? The class went through varying stages of shock, amusement, and embarrassment. Hey, Sith. What are you playing at Uba-dash? His ass. So you repeated, our coffee? Genius. Kirishima was holding in his laughter and said, what did you expect? When has he not told it like it is? So you put a finger to her chin. But my main concern is why Hiki dash. Shut your mouth, frog fucker. Katsuki sat up and roared at her, his blush going neon. I really didn't think it was possible for Bakugo to be embarrassed. Kaminari jeered to a snickering Kirishima. All right. Sith drew attention to himself. While I just showed you all what being a pro hero is like, a few people were confused by his extra emphasis on hero. I'll show you Midoriya as the opposite, a villain. His face went a bit more serious and his voice a tiny bit quieter. I'm sorry, Jiru spoke up, but that's a thing? She gestured broadly at the screen. After all of that, he just does a 180, she finished, a bit louder than she meant to her slight embarrassment. Well here, none of that happened in the first place. Sith raised his hand to snap. You all can take this as a cautionary tale. Jiru sighed in defeat. What happened? Mineta was awake. Sure. K. The screen lit. 16 months prior. Izuku walked the sidewalk to his school, wearing a middle school uniform. Izuku turned to a humanoid shark-like titan with dreadlocks. He shook around and swatted at the helicopters around his head like flies, but missing. Ooh, I remember that. Emilady said, this was my debut. The camera turned to Izuku's face. He looked bored and annoyed, almost gothic. It looked ugly on him, for better terms. All of a sudden, Kamui Woods had appeared and grasped his arm with a long wooden vine. Damn, Midoriya. Kaminari was impressed. A fanboy through any world. All Might thought. It's not fair. Izuku thought bitterly. What's not fair? Toru tilted her head questioningly. Izuku stared at his feet as they carried him to school. He looked up at the old sign. Oh, how he loathed it. Fuck me too. Katsuki had to agree. Later in the day, Izuku was staring into his book. It was about medieval times, fantasy and all that. But at one point he dozed off so much, his entire world turned into some kind of abyss. All right, now that you're in your final year, the teacher, who had the world's most punchable face might I add, heaved a pile of papers on his desk. You all have to think very seriously about your future careers. He swept the floor with his eyes before smirking. But who am I kidding? He took a handful of sheets. You're all going for the hero course. Right? He threw them all like confetti. The class went wild, displaying their quirks. Some were muscular, one had a long neck, and one pulled on their eyeballs. Mina dry heaved. Izuku was pulled from his trance and looked around at the class before setting eyes on the teacher, who was watching the chaos. The incompetent prick. What a mad bouquet of darkness. Tokoyami uttered. Oh come on, what kind of teacher? Inko was gesturing at the screen to All Might, who was only watching the screen. Yes, your quirks are amazing. Settle down. Hey teach. Katsuki's boisterous voice broke what could have been peace. He slammed his foot onto his desk while flaring his explosions. Bakugo dash, Ida started. Listen, Ochako put her hand on his shoulder, all while not looking away. It's fine. Don't bunch me in with these losers. He pointed his thumb at his chest. I'll be the only one at this dump, to be a hero and I'll be number one. What a jerk, a girl yelled. Geez, Bakugo, a guy said in slight disgust. What makes you think you're better than us? Yeah, right. Shut up you damn extras. Were you really like this? Kirishima asked Katsuki. He didn't answer. This worried him for whatever came next. He knew he wasn't exactly a positive influence in Izuku's life. Oh yeah, you're aiming for you here, right Bakugo? This fucking teacher, man, he wasn't even doing anything. Yeah. Mina and Toru said at the same time. A huge collective gasp came from the class, except Izuku, who had drifted off into his own little world /abyss. That place has a 0.2% acceptance rate. No way. Izuku was longing to go home. It couldn't be that much longer, Rig. Oh, Midoriya, you're going for U.2, right? The teacher asked lazily from his desk. Ah, fuck. Katsuki massaged his temples. He knew what this was. Silence. Total, abyssal silence. Mineta had no idea what to do. It was so awkward. Izuku looked up and around, being snapped from his world by his name. What are you, Lu Dash? Bwaha! The class broke into laughter like the teacher told the funniest joke in the world. Hey! What the hell? Jairu was offended. What the hell did they have to laugh at? Fucking do you? He slammed his hand onto his desk, put behind him, and detonated it. Izuku didn't even flinch. But Katsuki did. He knew everything. But so did Sith. You're even worse than these extras. You're quirkless. His voice boomed louder than his explosions, but what was louder? The laughter that only grew at every second he stood and every letter he spewed. This whole fucking school is Katsuki's lapdog. Bakugo. Kirishima wanted to face him, but couldn't bear to look away. Katsuki ignored him. He put his head under a pyramid of his arms. Izuku stared back into his eyes. He wouldn't dare back down from this. Not this time. Izuku sighed and leaned his head back as far as possible. Bakugo. Damn, that's weird to hear. Class 1A thought. The fuck do you want, Deku? Silence. Eat shit. Izuku flung his head forward with as much force he could muster. Midoriya. Mina flung her arm to her mouth as Ida did the same. Fuck. Gasp. Whoa. / holy dash / what the? Katsuki fell back into his desk, grasping his nose. It broke? Deku broke. His fucking nose. How dare he? How dare you, asshole? Uraraka was livid. Midoriya. The teacher slammed his hands on the table. Detention. Now. Bullshit. Uraraka's, All Might's and Todoroki's voices yelled out. They spoke for everyone. Izuku got up as quickly as possible. He had made his point. We'll be calling your parent? He made sure to put as much emphasis possible on that word with a sneer. Izuku stopped dead. Inko gasped loudly through her tears. How dare that vile, stupid monster? Izuku heard only one voice through his heartbeat. It was that stretchy eyeball, bald fuckface. Oh no! Based on everything she saw today, Momo knew he was doomed. I saw her, Izuku snapped at him. He was talking to a girl, in the worst fucking attempt to pick her up. She looked just as fucking sad as he is, probably would have gotten rid of him if she could tell he'd be quirkless as a little guy. He gestured at his stomach. Jaws were dropped. All of them. How could you possibly, with any dignity, think that's okay? Detention, Midoriya. He didn't listen. He stalked towards the boy. The girl gasped and fucking giggled. Plus, he raised one finger up. She was so fucking idash. Izuku's hand found its way to his throat. That's what you get. Uraraka was screaming through tears. Izuku dragged the boy to the one place knew it'd hurt, the window. Oh shit. Shoji muttered. Midoriya. Stop. He was ignored. With a ton of effort, he used that arm to slam the boy into the glass. He coughed up blood. That felt good. Did he know? Uraraka was not prepared for this, but in her defense, no one else was either. Again, a voice that sounded like his own but filled to the brim with bitterness and insanity commanded. And he obliged. He struck the boy in the face. The glass cracked. Stop him. Someone came from behind and grabbed his arm. He was having none of it. He threw his back and headbutt the poor soul who stood there. Then he threw his head forward to the eyeball boy. The glass cracked wider. The teacher. Ciro tried to form a sentence, but couldn't. He struck again. Again, but this time his eyeballs sprang out. Izuku grabbed his eye. Jairu hit her face. He tugged it hard enough to drag the boy off the window and dodged him. The boy staggered only a few steps like he was about to beg for help, but Izuku grabbed his shoulder. Die! The crowd flinched. Izuku threw the boy back at the window. The boy hanged halfway out the window, blood covered his front. He hung so low, his eyeballs could be seen on the very edges of the class below. Okay, detention, right? Izuku turned and asked his teacher. He was too shocked to answer. As a matter of fact, he took a step back when Izuku looked at him, and so did everyone else. They had made a clear path to the door. Pussies? Izuku said to himself. Oh, Rigi. The girl rushed over to the window. Izuku turned to them. Please don't, Nizu muttered. She had helped him out? Izuku smirked. Nana no. Ida thought he could command this Izuku. Izuku turned suddenly and ran at them. Suddenly every pair of hands had reached for him. He wasn't sure how he dodged them. The adrenaline was too much. Toru and Mina huddled with each other for protection. Jiaiha. Izuku launched his foot at the boy's chest. Time seemed to slow. Blood splattered from his mouth to Izuku's pant leg. He toppled backward through the window, glass cutting through his flesh and clothing. He was gone. No one dared speak. They didn't want to believe someone who was so clearly meant to be a hero did that. Izuku panted like an animal, then the class heard a strange sound like he was about to choke. Tee-hee. He was giggling. Izuku threw his head up with his mouth covered, but it was so clear he was loving this moment, his eyes filled with demented delight. Ida took a shaky breath. Tsuyu, Uraraka, and Shoji had flashbacks about the psychopath Toga. Okay. Izuku acted like he just told a bad joke. I'll leave now. He looked around to his pale, deathly silent and horrified classmates. I promise. Hee. Izuku skipped, like a little boy with his backpack slung over his shoulder, out of the classroom. Time skip. Izuku has been under this bridge for how long now? All might recognize the location. It was where he first met Izuku, where he... Oh dear. He checked his phone. A few hours? Wow, time flies. He turned to keep walking. How would he go over this with Mom? She'd understand. That eyeball prick and that whole damn school deserve to burn. She'd understand when he explains how long they've tried to pull those stunts on him. But they took it much too far today. Oh yes they did. She'd understand because she knows he loves her. He'd never let someone speak that way and go unpunished. She'd understand. She has to. For a split second she did. Izuku walked further and further until... Clang. Izuku looked over his shoulder. Out of the manhole cover was a pillar of green sludge. What the fuck? The women screamed. Izuku looked up and saw a jaw, suspended in the sludge's face, and two disgusting yellow eyeballs and red pupils. Oh, how nice. A medium-sized skin suit. Izuku took a step back. Oh fuck. Now they won't find me. Come here, runt. Izuku took off his backpack and chucked it at the sludge's eyeball, but it dodged. Fuck. Izuku turned and ran, but the sludge dived at him, coating him in his disgusting body. God fucking damn it. Izuku threw his hands around, but the sludge bent around his fingers and covered him more and more, but then it forced itself in his mouth and nose. Jesus! Juru screamed but covered her mouth. She heard gagging and wheezing sounds. Get out of there. This actually happened, Sith said, to your Midoriya? It did. He made it worse. Don't squirm, brat, I'm a liquid. Izuku kept fighting, punching and kicking at the sludge. After a few more seconds, Izuku clawed at the sludge surrounding his throat. You'll be dead. Someone. Help. Inko grabbed All Might's hand and squeezed. Giha. Help. Haha. Help me. Please. Haha. Bastard. Izuku's eyes were drifting. No matter what he is, seeing any form of Deku dying was a nightmare for Uraraka. She was crying to Ida. All the sludge turned hard, like cement. Sniffle, ha. Uraraka looked up. Izuku looked around the sludge and turned black. The camera did a close-up of the sludge's eyes. They had rolled back. He was dead. Izuku fell through the sludge, like a haystack, but as he fell the sludge corroded to ashes. Izuku hit the ground. The fuck. Izuku turned his head and saw a pair of red sneakers. He passed out. My God. Kaminari panted and breathed like he had held his breath the entire scene. Uraraka clenched her heart and Ida's shoulder while he held her hand for comfort. Tsuyu was consoling a hyperventilating Mineta, who surprisingly didn't try anything. Izuku shook his head. He was sitting down. He was comfy. He wondered what happened. Where am I? Did I die? The crowd flinched. No. I was saved. Am I in someone's house? Izuku opened one eye. He looked around and saw what looked like a dimly lit, sketchy bar. The heroes and Katsuki flinched again. They knew. Am I in a better or worse situation? Worse. The heroes and Katsuki thought. Oh good. The voice was the raspiest, most I need sleep voice Izuku has ever had the displeasure of hearing, and he's met Katsuki. Izuku turned his head to look at them. The first thing he saw were the red sneakers. So it was you the crowd and Izuku thought at the same time. He wore pitch black pants, then he looked up at their chest and head. No! Ida was the first to shout. He's Bibin. Kaminari pointed a shaky finger at the screen. His shirt was also black, and he had shaggy light blue hair, no biggie. The weird thing was he had like clay hands all over. One on his face, and one grasping each shoulder, elbows, and forearms. Excuse me, what the fuck? You're awake. The man took his right hand and scratched his neck. The League. The class said with such bitterness that the heroes were actually a bit surprised. Who? Izuku leaned up from his stool. Where am I? The man took a seat next to Izuku, so by reflex he scooted as far away as the stool would let him. My base, I didn't want you to lay there and die. Why? Izuku's question was instant. This man didn't strike him as a hero type. Good. Because, the man turned to him, I wanted to give you a job offer. No. What is it? Wait, Izuku shook his head. Who are you? Call me Tamura. And you are? Tamura stopped scratching. Midoriya, hey look, Tamu. Tamura raised a brow behind the hand. I've got one question then I'll leave, okay? Tamura shrugged. What's the job? Izuku raised his brow. Tamura smiled. How do you feel? Okay, what? What those that even mean? Izuku already looked tired with this man. How do you feel about this world? The heroes? Izuku didn't say anything, he was interested. No. Uraraka gasped. He wagged a finger. I think, Tamura chuckled. It's bullshit. Everyone thinks that a knight in shining armor will save the day at every little inconvenience. They but labels on how people are born, either a hero's quirk. He looked at his own hand. A villain's? He looked directly at Izuku. Or none at all. Izuku looked away. I want to turn those who live in that segregated, demeaning, utopian lifestyle. He put his hand on Izuku's shoulder, but raised his pinky to ashes. Izuku liked the sound of that, and a certain blonde who deserved it the most. Katsuki turned away. I can't. Another massive wave of relieved sighs. What do you mean? Tamura scowled under the hand. I meant. Izuku stood up. I'll consider it. Izuku smirked a little bit. I like your thinking, Tamura. But there's someone I need to see. If you know I'm quirkless, you know what I did to that bald fuckhead, right? Tamura laughed and clapped his hands. And I loved it, but I've got to ask. Tamura pointed at him. What did he do? Izuku was about to say, but he laughed instead. The crowd was revolted. Izuku covered his mouth. I'm sorry, it's just. He looked to the roof and sighed. He called my mom fat. Izuku looked back down at Tamura. He couldn't tell his expression from the hand mask, but he stood perfectly still. Hee. Tamura pointed at him again. I like you. You have a home here, kid. Tamura threw his head back, cackling. Can we all just... Koda was speaking with his head straight down. Appreciate the fact that none of this really happens. In your universe, All Might saved him from the sludge. All Might felt grateful that he found Midoriya before the League ever could, but he knew he did something horrible. Izuku ambled far on the sidewalk. According to his phone, it'd take about 17 minutes to get home. We interrupt this program. The televisions on display to his right spoke up. Huh? Huh? For breaking news. These are never good. Earlier today, a picture of the Shark Man showed up. This man was apprehended by MT Lady and Kamui Woods, but during his ride to prison, he escaped. Called it. That was several hours ago, but he the #1 hero. All Might has cornered him, and in retaliation, he continued his rampage. The image next was a neighborhood of apartment complexes, but Izuku didn't need to hear anything else. He recognized the place. It's where he lived. Oh no! Inko put her head in her hands. Oh fuck. Izuku sprinted like hell. For the first time his face said something other than rage or boredom. Izuku wasn't too sure how long he was running for, he just knew he was there because 1. It looked like the entire damn neighborhood was standing in front of the building, speaking of which 2. The whole building was reduced to rubble. Oh shit. Izuku had cried on the way there, his eyes and throat burned worse than any acid, his lungs and heart were begging for mercy, his arms and legs felt like they were abused, but he had to know. Hasn't enough happened? Uraraka and Ida hunched closer for their friend. He saw 2 police officers talking to each other next to their cruiser. With what little energy and stamina he had left, he walked nearby and hid in the back of a crowd. So, do we have a casualty count? Izuku and the audience's breath hitched. Yes, sir. As far as the investigation's gone, only 1. Don't you dare say what I think you're about to, cunt, don't even think about it. Izuku twitched wildly. All Might hung his head low. Oh, Midoriya. Well, you know that report about the assault at the middle school west from here? Don't you dare. Inko grabbed All Might's hand. The Midoriya case? And how we sent Detective Nao Mesa to question his mother? Oh, her, Inko Midoriya, right? How was it her? She refused to evacuate due to shock, her neighbors say. Izuku heard enough. His head spun like a typhoon, he looked around, the police, street, and starlights made things bright. But the world seemed to be out of focus and getting darker, his ears were drowning in white noise. He was dying again, he had to be dead or better. A nightmare. An awful, cruel fucking nightmare. Right? Inko sobbed heavily into All Might's shoulder, and Ochako to Ida, Jur to Momo, Midnight and Lady to each other, and Katsuki to himself as silently as he could possibly be. Izuku saw one thing come into focus. It was All Might jumping away, so far he looked to be flying. Ooh. All Might looked up, he didn't want to know what he was about to say, but he needed to. You didn't save her. He didn't sound angry, he was being blunt and straightforward. Deku. Ochako cried into Ida. You're no hero, you couldn't save her. Izuku heard something pierce the fog of white noise. It was applause, they were cheering him on. Stop it. They got louder. Shut up. He heard them chanting his name. Why are you cheering? He failed. He's a fraud. All Might's heart clenched like a vice. He was hyperventilating. Izuku's voice sounded as young and innocent as a baby's, but as worn down and dead as an old man's. Killed my mother. He still didn't sound angry. Inko wrapped her arms around All Might as tight as she could. So. The camera did a close-up on Izuku's eye. All Might's and the moon reflected perfectly in his tiny pupil. I'll kill you for that. Izuku looked over to the conversating cops, but I'll need help. It was pitch black from midnight and rain clouds. Kurojairi stood behind his bar, watching the news and washing dishes, listening to the soothing sounds of running water and raindrops against the window. It's the kid's mom. Shigaraki sat on the stool in front of him. The recruit. Midoriya, and yes. Why do you want him? Shigaraki sipped a glass of water. We're both the same, Shigaraki said like it's obvious. We're going to break the world. Shigaraki flourished dramatically. That broke us. He's not anything like you. The audience thought. He's better than that. Knock knock. The blunt noise disrupted the peaceful orchestra that was their bar. Oh ho, Shigaraki grunted and got up from his stool. Sniffle, Mr. Tamura? Shigaraki unlocked the door. I'm home. Shigaraki froze up. Kurojairi almost dropped his glass. We've lost him, thought the audience. Shigaraki threw open the door, and Izuku's shining eyes stared back at him. His clothes were in an awful condition and his hair was matted down by the pelting rain. I see yo oof. Tamura was about to welcome the boy, but Izuku stuffed himself to Tamura's chest and wrapped his arms around him, tight as a vice. Tamura turned to Kurojairi, who busied himself with the glasses. Izuku bawled and sobbed uncontrollably. I saw on the news, kid. He placed his hand on the back of his head, minus the pinky. Welcome home. Izuku sobbed harder. Now come inside, you look fucking awful. Shigaraki slammed the door shut. Present time. Yuta was reduced to rubble. Oh Lord! Nizu squeaked. Ash and flames filled the sky above the lands. No one dared enter. All Might crawled for the first time in his career. All Might looked back at the screen. He was in his skinny form, crawling with only his arms to a large piece of rubble. With much effort he heaved himself up. Mirio gasped. His face was beaten bloody, only one eye was opened, while the edges of his hair looked singed. One arm grasped his chest while the other around the rubble. He gasped every second for air, but it was as shaky and rattled as a broken window. His ears perked as he screams in the distance, commands and battle cries, all were in vain, and ended with pleas of mercy, but then silenced. Each student and hero wondered the fight they had put up against this force, but all somehow knew their fate. All Might looked down at himself and groaned. Those brave enough to still watch turned away. His costume was tattered, blood seeping from every cut. He looked to his right leg, it was broken at the knee. And Midoriya, as a V-villain, does all of this? Jiraiya was horrified behind any measure. He looked up and stared into a wall of smoke. A green spark pierced it, and stared at his limp form and closed. All Might heard laughter, cold, amused, triumphant laughter. No, no, no. Ochako shook her head in Ida's embrace. A single, black leather shoe came from the smoke. You All Might. The rest of his form came into view. Black dress pants, a black vest and white undershirt, a blood-red tie, and a pair of studded black gloves, covered in blood. He couldn't have. Ida stared in shock. Midoriya? Did that? The camera switched over to his face. His hair was matted over one eye, his emerald eyes were dulled by cruelty and rage, but he still smirked. Are an eyesore. All Might coughed up blood. Wimp. Izuku ran up and high-kicked his chin. The crowd shuddered and gasped. You! Izuku stomped his chest. No! Izuku kicked the side of his face like a rock on the street, sending him down. Symbol! Izuku stepped on his bad knee. All Might screamed as much as his broken voice let him. The real All Might winced and put his hand over Inko's. Eningu! Izuku snapped his fingers. A white monster with bladed hands came from the ashes. Pick him up. Izuku took a step back as the beast picked him up by his elbows. All Might slumped pathetically in the Nomu's grasp. Izuku dug in his back pocket and put a hand on All Might's shoulder. Any last words? Izuku asked, clearly uninterested. Yeah. Izuku smirked. And what would that be dash? Flat. All Might had spit blood in Izuku's face. Wow. Izuku wiped the blood away and pulled out a pistol. No. Real mature, Izuku. Looked unamused and pointed the gun. I guess it's my fault for expecting something from you. Midoriya, please. All Might tried to bargain with someone who couldn't hear him. All Might looked up at him through the hair and blood. I don't need. All Might swallowed the blood and spit. To live, to know, you'll still lose. I'll die, but the spirit of peace goes on. He slumped back. Say hi to my mother. Bang. If anyone wasn't crying or turned away, they were now. People choked on air, sobbed to the person next to them, or went slack-jawed and staring. The audience was still reeling from what they saw, although none more than All Might. I can still trust him. I saved him from whatever the hell that was. This doesn't change a damn thing. Sith was busy trying to find the words. I said, Midoriya goes plus ultra no matter what, right? He scratched the back of his head awkwardly. I meant he does whatever is necessary, and as you saw, Sith gestured at the screen. It's not always the right thing. Ochako held her head in her palms, and those sitting close enough heard her repeat, no, over and over like a broken record. I do want you all to know, to appreciate your friends, and know what it takes to push someone off the deep end, Nizu started philosophically, because for some, it doesn't take that much. Many were cringing and squirming at the images, others were thanking their lucky stars that the reality before them was not their own, while Katsuki in particular sat completely stoically, his thoughts running wild as his heart was beating. Fucking hell. Inko was sobbing silently into All Might's shoulder while he held her shoulder. 20 minutes later. Is everyone okay? Sith asked while looking around the room. He had woken up Eri, who doesn't know what's wrong. Ochako had come back up, Inko and All Might sat straighter and Katsuki wasn't twitching. They didn't look bad, but not okay either. Nizu looked around and spoke for them all. Yes, as long as the next installment isn't as unpleasant dash. Oh Lord no. Sith shook his head. I wouldn't, as a matter of fact. Sith snapped his fingers. The screen lit up, bright red filled the screen. This one is quite the opposite. What looked like a white box fell onto the middle of the screen, half white and half red with opposing color buttons with a sealai boing. Everyone took a quick glance at Todoroki. Then white text appeared. Switch. Kaminari tilted his head. This, Sith gestured at the screen, is a video game trailer. In this game, characters and idols from games all over come here to fight. Ida was the first to ask, video game? Yeah, us gods have weird hobbies. He looked in a seemingly random direction, like whatever he was looking at, he was piercing their soul. Mr. Sith. Midnight knocked him out of his trance. What a Oh yeah, the game. Sith took one last glance and played the video. The screen showed the top of a small town. The camera went to several shots, each one being of cars going calmly, the grass and trees swaying gently, and buildings in tip-top shape. Wait a minute. Kaminari leaned in close. He knew this, he just didn't know where yet. Roar the camera went to a drugstore, where a giant yellow turtle thing roared a pillar of fire. I know this. Kaminari picked his brain. Something up? Kirishima asked. Nothing, I just think this looks familiar. It looked back down to the center of the roof. It had a black spiked collar on his neck, wrists, and ankles. He was facing the camera, but they saw his shell was green and spiked heavily. King Bowser. Kaminari snapped his fingers. That's where I know this. He turned excitedly to Kirishima. This is a pre-Quirk era game. Hey Mr. Sith, you guys have this? As a matter of fact, this series has gained a huge fan base. Sith smiled at that. I included, I'll add. The camera turned around to see a man protecting a cowering child. The man was a brunette with a poofy mustache and large nose. He wore a red cap with a white and red M, blue overalls and a red undershirt, white gloves, and brown shoes. Mario/Mario, Kaminari said. Mario was covered in dirt and ashes, and looked to be struggling to get up from one knee. Oh, he's a hero. Mina realized. The boy looked oddly like Mirio, same styled blonde hair, dot-like blue eyes, and the same skin. Lucas. Todoroki slowly raised his hand, but Ochako grabbed it and slowly put it down. She was warned of this by Deku. Lucas was writhing on the ground behind Mario, covered equally in dirt. In short, they were losing. Oh geez. Gyre was jumping slightly. She had a gut feeling she was just waiting for it to happen. Bowser let off a horrible, barking laugh and stomped towards the two. Mario looked back at Lucas and back to Bowser who stood over him. Mario looked up at the monster's silhouette and glowing amber eyes. Bowser raised one horrible claw and laughed harder. Mario braced for impact, but as Bowser moved to the side, he saw an odd shape descend, so he tilted his head. Ha! Bowser turned as well when he saw a second shadow behind him. Is he really that dumb? That Bowser guy? Emilady asked hypothetically. Bowser raised his hand to block out the sun. The camera turned to the side of Bowser's face. Ha! Smash! Gikyu/Midoriya/Izuku. Bowser looked a white glove collided with Bowser's puffed-up lips, and in slow motion, his face folded into the fist like clay. Boom! With a terrible cry, Bowser flipped through the air followed by a trail of smoke. Oof! Bowser grunted as he fell belly down on the building. He raised and shook his head to get out of a daze. Gore! Bowser shuffled up quickly and roared another pillar of fire into the sky. The camera went to the injured Lucas and Mario, who stared at the toppled Bowser, then looked their reinforcements bottom to top. Red and black sneakers? The kid made a good entrance. Lady said to herself. Green lightning bounced from different spots on his body, black padded legs. Ooh, come on. Ochako was officially excited. The camera raised to show off his dark red belt. green jumpsuit, and white gloves. Then it showed him getting into a boxing-like fighting pose, and showed his slightly smiling face, glowing green eyes filled with determination. Yeah. Ochako and Kaminari fist-pumped the air. Everyone else was excited, mind you, just not that much. Izuku turned to the two, smiled, and gave one thumb up. Mario's and Lucas' expressions softened. Mario tipped his hat as Lucas gave a nod. Izuku turned back to a recovered Bowser. The camera switched to Bowser's POV, indicated by the shaking and smoke billowing from his nose. Bowser leaned in and roared again. The camera switched back to Izuku, who started charging headfirst. Back to Bowser's view. He started charging as well. His footsteps sounded so heavy it was a miracle the roof didn't collapse. Stuff that prick into his shell. Katsuki commanded. Ira! Izuku shouted and leaped at Bowser, charging a punch. The screen went green, except for Izuku, and a title card that looked to belong to a comic book fell to his side. The puts the smash into Super Smash Bros. Yeah. More people joined with Ochako and Kaminari. Now for the gameplay. Sith smiled to himself. You know damn well what this is. The camera showed the drugstore, but there was no Mario or Lucas, only Deku and Bowser charging each other. Bowser turned and gave Izuku a one-leg dropkick, but Izuku dodged from the side and ended up behind, punching him in the back once, causing Bowser to fly up a little. A connecting low kick and a spinning roundhouse sent Bowser away. This music! Jiru was in awe. The camera zoomed into Izuku, where he charged full cowling for a second before chasing Bowser off-screen. In another shot, Izuku fell onto a grassy plain with odd light and dark brown block dirt, wearing the U.A school uniform. Represent! Kirishima cheered, pounding his chest while Momo shook a pair of pom-poms. Izuku scratched the back of his head nervously, then a tiny Bowser in a Clown Cup mobile jumped off his head, and Izuku chased him. The camera went 2D. On top of what looked like a tall hill, it showed a blond man in a blue tunic leap at Izuku with his sword swinging in an arc. Link. Izuku blocked this with a pink bubble, and delivered a step-forwards uppercut. Link flew up slightly with a cry. Izuku jumped up and swung his foot down, bouncing him off the ground below. Izuku fell down, crouched, and slid-kicked the man before he could land again. Get him, Deku! Ochako cheered. Izuku, now wearing the gym uniform, and a smaller, green tunic-wearing Link fought on a flat gray stadium platform. The young Link pulled out a bow and fired a flaming arrow. Izuku sidestepped it diligently, then sprinted and threw a drifting haymaker to Link's face. Link was sent off-screen and Izuku followed. The thing was, Link was covering a podium with Midnight herself playing referee. Wait me! The camera panned to see the giant square platform and the huge stadium. A black card appeared in the left corner, reading, U.A Sports Ring. And for the first time, the teachers cheered louder than the class. Back to Link and Deku, Link unleashed a small flurry of blows that sent him back and threw a small bomb. Hey! Katsuki was offended. How dare someone tries and kill Deku with explosions? That crossed both lines. The bomb connected and sent Izuku in the air with a scream. Young Link did taunting swings with his sword before sheathing it. Gore! The camera turned cinematic. Izuku's eye glowed brighter. That Link dude messed up. Said. Izuku threw his head back and crossed his arms over his face. Green lightning cracked full. Oh, definitely, Mina replied. Izuku threw his arms out in a roar, cowling. The comic book label appeared and read, 5%. Come on, young Midoriya. All Might cheered internally. Link unsheathed his sword, but Izuku had already been above him, punched him back, and landed with another slide kick. The camera came close to Izuku's side, holding his arms straight out like he was about to flick something. Delaware. The scene turned to a section of a comic book, and in the next section, it showed a rocky and grassy plain, with a large gorilla in a tie winding up a huge punch. Izuku rolled behind him and prepped his own, Detroit. The next section of the comic book showed a man. The card labeled him, Caption Falcon. His costume looks like a racer's, Ida observed. Wait a second dash. They then noticed that they were fighting on a moving blue spaceship-like car zooming across the track. Deku and O. Ochako did a 180, She was not on board with this anymore. Izuku jumped into the air and swung at the caption, but he dodged, uppercut him and leaped up after him. "Come on!" Caption Falcon yelled as he shot forwards a super powerful knee to Izuku's gut. "JH." Izuku flew back, crashed and bounced off the tail of the ship. "Get up, beat his ass," Katsuki demanded. Kirishima put his arm on his shoulder and said, "Dude, it's a video game, it isn't really him." Caption Falcon flipped right above Izuku and thrusts his feet down to crush him, but Izuku rolled away from the fin, jumped up, and yelled, "St. Louis." When he yells out smash, he's gonna beat the hell out of all of them, right? Back to the comic book. The next one showed them back at the sports ring, with Izuku in the air, then a giant dark-dressed man, labeled Ganondorf, grabbed him from the air, hand covered in purple flames, and exploded in his face. Ganondorf laughed as he dived for Izuku again, this time slamming him into the arena below. Izuku and Ganondorf surged with energy for a moment, but for Izuku, the comic book label came in red, full cowling, 10%. Ganondorf rushed in with his shoulder, but Izuku cried out, "Manchester," and flew straight into the air. The next few scenes were shown like the pages of a comic book turning, each page furthering his descent with every letter of smash spelled with every new distance crossed. The comic book gimmick makes sense, Sato pointed out, because superheroes only used to be fiction. Smash! Izuku yelled as Ganondorf bounced off the floor, and so high up he crashed against the screen. "Ah! Holy dash! Whoa, 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 what? Present mic finished?" "Oh yeah," Sith spoke up, "if you hit them hard enough they do that." Back to Izuku and Caption Falcon. Smash! Izuku struck Caption Falcon in the back, doing a close-up with a blue spiky bubble reading crack. "Get bent, bird bitch." And turning the page to Donkey Kong and him, smash! Izuku hit Donkey Kong in his back, but the green spiky bubble read, "Wapow." I haven't read that word in like... Aizawa was trying to comprehend what he just read. Donkey Kong bounced off a totem with a face, but Izuku was prepping an uppercut, and when Donkey landed, Izuku's fist shot almost straight up like a fist pump, bim, and sent DK to the sky. And as he flailed helplessly through the air, Izuku threw his head back and gave the most accurate, creepy, yet perfect All Might laugh he could. All Might seemingly choked on air while Izuku's classmates laughed. Of course he could, because why not? Then a golf swing like thumbs up as DK became a flash of light like a star. The page turned to Izuku and Link at the arena. Smash! Slash smash! Class 1A yelled with him. All Might turned so suddenly Inko noticed, and when she asked him what's wrong he said it was nothing. "Are you crying, All Might, sir?" All Might pretended not to hear her and watched with one eye. Link was launched to the K.O. by the bursting stream of air and green energy. "You get stronger every day, my boy." "All Might?" everyone asked at once. Todoroki leaned in closer. "I swear if I learn those two are related, he's going to get so much hell from me." Thank you, All Might." The comic book flipped a few pages to show Izuku and skinny All Might sitting side by side on a railing in front of a sunset-lit beach, Dagoba. "I remember this place," Toru said. "I went here all the time as a kid. Even though she was invisible, they could tell she was scowling. Then people started piling trash on it like a dump." She ended with a humph. Kirishima chuckled. "Yeah, then some maniac started cleaning it all." All Might's heart soared with pride. "With this gift me and you share." The comic flipped to a black background with All Might holding a yellow spark, but this spark looked like a constellation of stars, it being the last in the line of 7 other multicolored stars. "Gift? Share?" the room thought in unison. All Might suddenly felt nervous. A green spark appeared in front of Izuku, and on the next page, the yellow star connected to Izuku's. "You and I stand tall, where there is dark, we should bring light." All Might closed his palm on his star, and when we dim, All Might put his hand on his shoulder, we pass the torch, and this light shines brighter every time. Now go, make me proud, my boy. Izuku leapt down and turned around. I'll do my best, sir. All Might smiled. Oh, God. Katsuki looked mad, even though the rest of the audience couldn't tell what he could possibly be mad at. Just, Jesus, adopt him already. All Might coughed blood violently while everyone leaned away, but still intrigued. It is so obvious you want to. Thank you. Todoroki yelled. What are you two talking about? Kako asked. Sith snapped his fingers, and those three forgot what they were talking about. You're welcome. The comic book showed Izuku running towards the page, each one turning making him go smoother and smoother until he fell onto a place labeled Final Destination. All Might is right. Izuku jumped into the air and slammed down a green-clad Mario-looking person. On the wings of an airplane, he and Caption Falcon charged their signature punches. /Detriot. I'll stand tall. Punch. /Smash. The two went flying in opposing directions. I'll be the greatest hero the world's ever seen. You. Shut up, Bakugo. Izawa said. And if that means... Izuku landed back at Final Destination, where Bowser, Ganondorf, and a terrifying purple dragon named Ridley taunted him with laughs and roars. 15%. Izuku's form blazed with green lightning. Izuku, in Yudara uniform, and what looked like a sword-swinging angel, labeled Pit, brawled in front of a temple, high above the clouds. Pit shot a blue arrow at Izuku, he dodged and shot a black tendril from his palm, thwipe, which flew a short distance and dragged Pit to Izuku's hands. Nanny? Izuku flicked Pit's forehead, then judo slammed Pit behind him into the ground. Okay, what the hell? Katsuki wasn't alone in this outburst. Since when could he do that? Oh yeah, Sith said while scratching his chin. You'd think a god wouldn't be as forgetful. You didn't know this, but in your universe, which is the same as this, he said while gesturing at the screen, but only in the future, your Midoriya has like 6 quirks before he graduates UA or something along those lines. Katsuki was the first to break out of the wave of shock. I can't beat him with 6 quirks. What if they're all good ones? That's like shitty hairs, half-nifs, mine, All Might's, fucking ponytails, and dunce face all in one. What the fuck? 6. All Might wondered, how could he have, but not I? Perhaps it's something to do with the bond between him and One for All reacting, creating some kind of mega-host? Those that sound stupid. A hero with 6 quirks, itchem? Midnight said as she rested her chin on her hand, like that all for one creep, only good. Midnight smiled. Anyone like that running sounds good, we should be glad the kid's on our side, huh? She presented to Nizu and Aizawa. If you all don't mind. Sith said, I'd like to continue. I have to go through all of you. Deku and a large cape and crown wearing crocodile, labeled King K. Roll, fought off on the deck of a ship, while in the air Roll drop-kicked him off the back, but recovered in time to use his black whip to catch the back of the ship like a cliff. Now getting over the initial shock, the crowd was able to awe at this new discovery. Deku pulled himself up quickly and leaped high above Roll, so high he landed on the crow's nest. He held his arms close to his chest and beamed with power. Cowling. They're done, Jiru said without skipping a beat. The screen faded to black. Then so be it. 20%. The screen erupted, the darkness split open by the strokes of lightning. I'll take anyone on. Yeah. Ochako and Ida cheered. Izuku fought against a man in a karate gi, Ryu, who missed a crouching uppercut, so Izuku slid-kicked him into the air, a simple uppercut, a slightly charged fist bump punch. No mercy. You know who that was. Then he leaped up, St. Louis dash. Energy charged in his leg as he span it around, smash. It made contact and launched Ryu off-screen. 100% Detroit dash. No! The class yelled plus All Might. Izuku in a gym suit stood at a showdown in a boxing ring. His opponent was titled Little Mac. More like Little B.I. dash. Bakugo! Aizawa shouted. A boxing bell ringed twice as the punch made contact, and did a close-up, simply defining the force of the blow. No! The class, plus All Might, screamed at the screen. Smash! Yes. I hate this. Aizawa thought, trying to stop the ringing in his ears. Izuku returned his own blow, turning the whole screen to a comic-style close-up of Izuku's fist in his face, even going as far as a spiky speech bubble reading, "Smash." Little Mac flew out of the ring, but it went back to Izuku, showing him slouched over in great pain, his arm a deep purple. Problem child, what the hell? One day, I'll master these powers. Izuku launched a 100% Delaware smash into the air after Fox, who zoomed in front of a full moon shining on a falling clock. As Izuku reeled from the attack's backlash, Fox blasted Izuku in the back. "Oh, Deku. It doesn't matter if I need help along the way." Izuku, now on a shining beach, ran over to a rainbow-filled jar with a silhouette of a person in it. Izuku picked it up and, in a puff of smoke, "Aizawa-sensei." Midnight and Lady laughed at Aizawa's slightly embarrassed expression. It was true, a yawning, fully dressed Aizawa appeared. He threw his scarf above the screen and raised himself about 3/4 up the screen. A black card said, "Eraserhead, ability disable." Then his gaze lit up like a red spotlight. "Makes sense." "Yeah." Present Mike cheered his friend on. Bowser appeared from above. Izuku jumped into Aizawa's light. Bowser breathed fire, but Aizawa turned to him, and Bowser still breathed, but no fire. "Aizawa-sensei, saving our asses since we've met him," Mineta said. Izuku ran up and did a drifting haymaker, knocking him away. The screen zoomed in to show Aizawa landing down next to Izuku. Izuku turned to him and started writing frantically into a charred notebook, while Aizawa pulled out his sleeping bag. Of course they both do that. It won't make me any less a hero. And back to the start, Izuku was facing Bowser on the drugstore, but something was really off. The background became much darker, and Izuku emitted a strange rainbow-colored mist. "The grand finale!" Sith cheered. "This is it!" Izuku cried as he rushed Bowser. "Oh, see," Katsuki said, "about time you got serious with these damn wimps, Deku." The camera showed Izuku uppercutting Bowser far up, a spottily clouded night sky filled with thousands of stars. "Eri-chan." "Huh." Eri tilted her head. Izuku leaped forwards, then bounced at Bowser. A shot below Bowser revealed Eri giving off a golden glow, strapped to Izuku's back. "Go Eri-chan and Midoriya." Mirio cheered. A comic book page captured the scene, a heading reading, "Full cowling, 100%. Go Deku /Midoriya /Izuku." For the first time, Inko had joined the rowdy crowds cheering, smiling brightly. Like a green rocket, Izuku and Eri carried Bowser with a flurry of punches and kicks. A woman appeared behind Izuku. She wore a black suit, a white cape, and yellow boots. In short, she was Nana? Inko and All Might said at once. Everyone turned their heads to them. Inko waved her hands nervously. Oh, sorry everyone, she was a favorite of mine when I was growing up. I'm just wondering why. Inko stared and squinted at the screen intently. What's going on with her and my son? She's supposed to be dead. All Might flinched. I knew her from an internship. So, he's been using the previous user's quirks? I've said it once, and now again. Midoriya? When did you get so cool? Izuku and Nana's punches hit at the same time, in the same place as one person. Then Izuku started spinning like a tornado, striking over and over again with one foot. He put one foot on Bowser's head. Nana disappears, and bounced off. Get! Izuku thrusts an open palm, a ghost-like figure of a burly, stubbly-chinned man like Aizawa, with goggles, did the same, the black whip shooting like a grappling hook at Bowser. Kaminari turned to a sobbing Kirishima. So manly. Over here. Izuku and the man pulled at once, dragging him to Izuku. 1,000,000%. Hell no. The class screamed in protest, with Aizawa agreeing for once. He'd lose his arm. Ida protested, his arm swinging like a pissed-off robot. Do you know? Ochako and Katsuki yelled. Delaware. Detroit. Izuku prepped his punch as he fell towards Bowser. Suddenly, oh god no. 7 people took form like ghosts, Nana, the goggled man and 4 others behind them, but the interesting thing, All Might was the closest to him. Are we sure? Zero started. Those 2 aren't Fath Dash. Yes. All Might answered. Inko hid her blushing with her collar. Izuku and the other 7 took the same pose of a falling punch. Izuku brought his hands straight down, so did everyone else. This is making me feel some kind of way. Mina said, giggling. Smash. All 8 heroes' fist connected on the same point on Bowser's chest. A zoom out showed the clouds fire hundreds of feet away from the impact. Yes. Kirishima, All Might, and Kaminari jumped up at once. The ghosts shattered like glass, but so did Bowser's bones as he flew down to earth at Mach speed. The screen faded white with the huge boom of Bowser's body. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The audience cheered at the display of their friend and classmate's power. That's cute. Huh? The audience snapped back at the screen. The screen stood still as Katsuki walked onto the screen in front of the title. But did you extras think I wouldn't come here and show Deku up? Ha! Katsuki threw his head back. Cue the comic book frame. Katsuki. Who let him in here? Katsuki looked at the card and blew it up. When the smoke cleared, he read it. Oof, that's better. Ground Zero. Lights up the competition. Yeah. Katsuki lit several explosions in the air. Can't blame him this time. Until next time. The screen read. OH come on, /OH come on, both Bakugos yelled in fury. Damn it. Katsuki shouted. Bakugo, Sith turned to him, there will be a part 2 for you, but I'm waiting. For what? Well, 1. Please don't yell dash dot. Not happening. Understandable, 2. The Kirishima snorted and smiled. I remembered to do something important. You'd really think a god would remember things better. I heard that. Sith looked unimpressed, ignoring the slightly startled faces of his crowd. That important thing is. Sith snapped his fingers, and suddenly, the couch Ida and Uraraka were sitting on had split between them and extended enough to fit another cushion, but the seat that was supposed to be there had spawned in the center of the room, and another swirling purple portal spawned atop of it. I'm inviting more guests, but this one here's the most important. A slumbering body had landed with a gentle thump, and there he was, emerald green hair, freckles and all. Izuku! /Midoriya. The crowd cheered, but Katsuki and Tsuyu were confused. Mr. Sith? Tsuyu asked. Yep. I thought you couldn't bring him here? Tsuyu continued. She was sure she remembered the reason. Well, yes, but I brought in a different multiversal variant of him. Sith explained. Oh, so what's different about this one? Tsuyu turned back to Izuku and tilted his head a bit to the side. Katsuki leaned in closer. He was sure there was something in his hair, something really odd. Izuku's eyes opened slightly, closed, and opened about halfway. He raised his head and yawned widely, then they saw the odd thing Katsuki saw. It flickered on his head like candle flames, then opened fully. They were emerald green kitty ears, a jet-black tuft of fur at its opening and pretty bright pink insides. Then a slim snake-like tail rose from his back, matching in emerald green with a matching black tip. The initial reactions varied. Inko and All Might's hands found each other and squealed in delight. Nizu glanced at Aizawa, who let one hand reach towards Izuku's seat, but his other hand grabbed his wrist and forced it onto his lap. Many others cooed and awed, while only a few others turned away with blushes, but Ida noticed none of that, as he had grabbed Ochako and Todoroki by the back of their shirt collars to prevent them from tackling Izuku, all while repeating the words, Kitty Deku, /Midoriya, while thrashing about in Ida's iron grip, and at the same time, Mirio doing the same to a squirming, star-eyed Eri. Yeah, since you can't have your Midoriya, I figured a few of you would find this version of him a bit more. Sith did a windmill motion with his wrist, trying to find the right words. Appealing, I guess. Yep. Dark Shadow cheered /bellowed as Tokoyami tried to wrangle him away from the dazed green kitty. Katsuga perked up and flickered his ears, his eyes grazed through the crowd. Katsuku's lips parted slightly. Mr. Yaour? His head tilted to the side curiously. Madness. Absolute madness is what ensued in that theater, but Sith had smiled before he heard any reactions. He had a general idea of what this was. Aizawa had to lasso Empty Lady and Midnight to stop them from kidnapping the kitty boy. Tokoyami stared as he started to consider letting Dark Shadow take Izuku. Mina and Toru joined hands to squeal at the boy while Jaire's hands suddenly shot over Momo's, thinking it would anchor her to her seat. But Momo saw the inner turmoil in Jaire's eyes as she twitched like a madman. And Uraraka and Todoroki begged Ida to release them. "Please, can we have him?" while genuinely sounding like they were about to cry if he denied them. Kirishima smiled and looked over to Katsuki, who hid his face in trembling hands. Sith was wrong, this was so much better. Katsuki jumped up with a cat-like yelp while his tail shot straight up. Hi guys. He took a moment to look around his surreal setting because, why? No, it's not very often you wake up with your best friends in the great vastness of space and still be alive. And if that is often for you, can we please switch lives? Anyways, Sith raised his hand, chuckling all the way, and snapped his fingers to set them back in their seat, and Izuku's in the gap between Ida and Uraraka. She squealed in delight while Deku's face became strawberry red. Ida, Uraraka? Sith asked while refilling his cup of tea from his pinky. Could you bring Midoriya up to speed for me? He finished lazily. Izuku turned from side to side, listening to his friends explain their situation as everyone else, minus Katsuki, who did it secretly, watching Izuku's tail and ears perk up more and more in excitement. It was then when they realized his freckles highlighted the base of his whiskers. Can I please have him? Dark Shadow pleaded to Tokoyami's mind. Wow, I did all that to that scorpion guy? Izuku said to Ida after a few minutes of explaining, minus his villainous side, of course. Yeah. Ochako perked up, and I have the best joke to tell you later. Ochako turned to laugh into her elbow. To stifle it, the crowd shuddered with small smiles. Right then, I'll assume you two are done over there? I've got the next universe ready. Excellent. Nizu clapped his paws together and turned to Sith. So what will we be watching next? Oh, 1 second. Sith pulled a pamphlet that was as thick as a phone book, opened it to about halfway through, and pointed at a paragraph. Granted, he kept it to himself so they couldn't see. This one is, he. Sith's face lit up with joy before shaking his head and apologizing. I'm sorry, but... He looked over his crowd. This specific one is called Godzilla. Godzilla. Katsuki repeated. The hell? I know it sounds weird, but please, let me show you. Jesus Lizard, Kaminari said with a smile. Holy Snake. Ciro chuckled. Satan Salamander. Mina barely got out before laughing. Veer Dash. Kirishima started. Please don't. Sith asked politely. He had just read his mind and did not want him to finish that sentence. And no one needed to hear that, but now he did. Fan-freaking-tastic. So, why am I here again? The voice clearly belonged to Izuku, but it was different, gruffer, but he didn't sound any older. Is this about that Godzilla thing? I have a question for you, Todoroki stated. The camera went to a dark entry to the stadium. On one side stood Todoroki in the athletic uniform, half covered in the tunnel's shade. Have you ever heard of the villain, Automaika? Todoroki asked, but reeled back slightly when the still-hidden Izuku growled. Oh geez. Katsuki said, not quite approving of his other. This is the sports festival, right? Todoroki asked. Aha. Sith answered. How could you tell? Minus. WL. Katsuki scratched the back of his head. Todoroki-kun asked if I was All Might's secret love child before the tournament. Bwaha. Kaminari and Kirishima broke into laughter while Todoroki and All Might hung their heads in embarrassment. I'll take that as a yes? You'd be correct, I know of him. The camera turned around to show Izuku, except, this was far from their Izuku. His hair was dominated mostly by black, leaving only single streaks or tips of green. His eyes were slit and focused solely on Todoroki, his cheeks were thinner and his chin was rougher, and most notably, a thick black-scaled tail with light grayish spikes came from his waist and wrapped around his ankles. Even his posture was unfamiliar. He crossed his arms and put his chin up enough to look like he was looking down or disgusted, Yet at the same time, annoyed and curious. I almost look. Katsuku tried to find an appropriate word to describe this. Intimidating. He was met with a unanimous agreement. He was a villain whose quirk allowed genetic mutation using radiation. Izuku sounded like he had rehearsed that sentence. Right, my father? Todoroki spat that out like saying that word would taint him. The half of the crowd that flinched were stunned on why they did. Endeavor fought him before, I assume you know that? Todoroki looked down slightly to look at Izuku's collar, which had a mechanical lock and a white pearl-looking object in the front. I don't remember it being this tense, and I don't know any. Atomika. Todoroki said. Oh, you'll know, just watch. Sith sipped from his dozenth cup of tea. Yes, Izuku slithered. May I? May I tell you something? Izuku's tongue flickered like a candle. Todoroki quickly nodded. I loathed Atomika, his quirk's side effects. It tore apart his victims and he used them for his own gains. The background disappeared and was replaced by a man's hand with a black sleeve holding a frog by its neck. Ribbit. An ominous green smoke emitted from the frog, as it became a silhouette with glowing green eyes. His quirk was basically forced mutation. The frog began to expand, his green eyes glowed red as two pairs of demonic horns sprouted from its head. Koda, much to his own surprise, found himself becoming angry. Where he takes his victim's body and mind. The giant frog, now sporting shark-like teeth, black skin and the size of a pickup truck, landed on an armored truck and crushed it like a tin can. This Atomika sounds damn powerful. Katsuki admitted, although a bit bitterly, he had felt there was more to this story. But its side effects were. Izuku took a deep breath and shivering exhale. Awful. The frog fell to its side with a pained, roar-like croak, like a large truck's horn. The first was since he used radiation for his axe, his subjects died. The frog's skin looked as if it was evaporating, a green-black mist rose and twirled into the air, leaving a massive heap of bones. Koda shook in his seat from an unfamiliar feeling of anger and sadness. He just knows he'll cuddle his bunny when he gets home. And the second. The dark mist suddenly started lowering to the city below, descending upon the surrounding crowd of police officers, heroes, and civilians. The crowd reeled back as Katsuku's ears flattened against his head. Was a radiated waste from his victims? The crowd below breathed in the fumes and began to both uncontrollably. The smoke rounded and circled around them, signifying the noose tied around their throats. Katsuku let out a scared roar, while the crowd sat, glad that this Atomika didn't exist in their world, at least not to their knowledge. Which made a single victim's corpse. Bodies started dropping, civilians fought their way into cars to get into some kind of sanctuary but failed. The crowd winced. Create enough radiation to make an entire city block. The camera went above, which had spread like a plague, completely uninhabitable. Civilians shouted in fear as they ran, groups of officers and heroes picked up civilians and helped them away. Holy shit! All Might shivered. That isn't even the worst of it, Izuku growled as he looked down solemnly. The crowd flinched, but leaned in slightly. What's worse than that? Mina asked, exasperated. Midoriya, I know what you're about to say, you don't have to. Todoroki suddenly had a flash of worry in his face, just a flash though. It's important, Izuku stated, his voice leaving no room for any argument. He discovered. A young-looking couple walked on a sidewalk, walking and laughing together. Tura grabbed Mina's hand out of instinct, while the heroes' faces scrunched up in rage, alongside most of the class plus Mirio, all while Inko and Eri had latched on to their closest blondes. That humans. The black-haired male turned behind him and opened his mouth to scream, but the hand from earlier had latched onto his face. The girl turned and screamed. Were compatible. The man turned into a silhouette with glowing red eyes like beams. Izuku took a moment to crack his neck and collect himself. But like his previous victims, they couldn't last long. Sometimes, they wouldn't even get a chance. The silhouetted man collapsed while the girl ran for her life. Holy shit! Katsuki muttered on instinct. The image had remained him of Shigaraki. What does this guy have to do with Midoriya /Izuku/Deku? He decided that he needed something permanent, something born from his quirk, that wouldn't suffer from it. The camera turned to the man, dressed in all black and a hood covering his face, walking into a hospital. Inko shook her head in disbelief. She had a feeling, a dark and nasty feeling. His greatest creation couldn't be someone or thing he kidnapped. He walked up a staircase and looked to his right, which had a wide mirror on it further down. He needed to breed his creation to life, which... The man walked up to the glass and peered down. In the closest crib lay Izuku, but his tiny claws and teeth tore through the cloth like a knife to butter, leaving him to expose his black-scaled hide and tail, all while making the most awful and angry hisses and snarls he could. The audience seemed to forget how to breathe. Ochako put her mouth in her hand, and with the other held on to Katsuku, who had a bit of remorse for this version of himself, while Todoroki thought bitterly about his past. Is where I come into the story. Izuku's eye pried open, his slit pupil shaking uncontrollably as he looked up at the man. He had jet black hair which sprawled out in every direction, although matted down by his hood, with very contrasting pale skin, with the same green eyes and a dozen freckles. Izuku's eye focused on the man, still growling and thrashing about, who had a face of pride. Not that he was proud of having a child, he was proud of his creation. So, your father trained you from that point to be a villain? Until my father captured him, at least. Todoroki asked. I almost forgot I was there. Todoroki said internally, and unknown to him he shared the same thought with the more entranced side of the audience. Izuku snorted and whacked the wall behind him with a small amount of force. You'd be correct, he trained me, created me, for the sole reason, to destroy All Might. He looked back up at Todoroki. His slit eyes were scanning Todoroki's mix-matched ones for something. All Might shuddered. The lengths villains take to beat him frightened him and chilled his spine. That might have been shocking for anyone else, Izuku started, but you're the same, aren't you? Huh. Todoroki raised an eyebrow like he was going to ask how he knew. You're the same, Izuku stated firmly. A man's eyes cannot lie. You have the same unwillingness, Izuku flexed his fingers, to live as I. All eyes were on Todoroki, who had decided to ignore it and keep watching, except Inko, who was in some sort of shock at seeing her son even imply that he wished to die. Todoroki sighed. He wanted a child like me, having fire and ice, so if I was overheated I could cool down, and if I was freezing I could heat up, which were both problems my parents faced. My father, unlike yours apparently, couldn't ace genetics as yours could. He looked at his left hand. So he tried over and over again, each time growing more and more frustrated, until, well. Todoroki gestured broadly to himself. Izuku looked at his left side, and the wide scar on it. And did he do that to you? He asked as he himself was no stranger to abuse. The crowd flinched while Inko shuddered violently into All Might's side. No. Todoroki crossed his arms and looked out. That's the thing, the effect it had on my mother. Endeavor had made her prioritize my siblings, isolating her from everything to her friends to family. A smaller Todoroki had appeared on screen, about kindergarten-aged and scarless. Titi Todoroki-san. Ochako turned to Todoroki, who had still stared straight into the screen still. I can't say I blame her for what she did, I've even forgiven her. The small Todoroki walked cautiously towards a thin white-haired woman, apparently his mother, who trembled over the sink. I'm sensing the moment when you say, but, Izuku said. Todoroki sighed. With your experience with this and what I said, you'll understand that Endeavor had driven my mother to a degree of madness. Todoroki's voice still held its impact and hurt, but its volume lowered. Tita-do, Roki-san? Momo tried. He stared more in response, which in turn made her more and more sure this really happened. Todoroki looked over to Katsuku, who offered the gentlest smile he could muster. She thought my left side to be a monstrosity. She turned from her sink and looked at Shoto with a single eye that held the epidemic of insanity, sorrow, and anger, all directed at him. The only thing to break this tension was the high-pitched whistle/shriek of the teapot. Meow! Katsuga had snuck over and sat on Todoroki's knee, and intentionally put his head under his, In my world, people keep on saying this calms them down. He confessed, and slowly but all too eagerly, he patted Katsuku's head and ran his thumb on his flattened ears. Todoroki felt blissful when Katsuku slightly vibrated from a drawn-out purr. The rest would feel jealous if they weren't convinced he'd needed it now more than ever. Shoto's mother grabbed the pot, and Shoto took one cautious step back. Ochako came behind Katsuku and hugged Todoroki as Katsuku sprawled himself on his lap. She spun so suddenly he couldn't react, and the screen went white when Shoto's tiny, high-pitched voice screamed to the heavens. Ida came to Todoroki's left and embraced him, while Katsuku's purrs shook his knee. In short, it took every ounce of willpower he had, and years of being emo not to cry. So my father took no blame and sent my mother to a mental hospital. Oh look, another bastard on my blow his ass up list. Katsuki muttered he'd done some fuck things, but what the fuck? Kirishima gave a small smile, knowing that was Katsuki's way of showing care. So despite the old man who had created me for the same reason as yours, I refuse to battle with my left side. I'll become the #1 hero only using my mother's ice. Todoroki finished. So that's why. The crowd thought, well, minus a few that didn't personally know Todoroki, but they all agreed on calling Endeavor a bastard. Eri was confused. She wondered why a hero was being portrayed as bad. In a way, that makes two of us then, Izuku shrugged. My father gave me everything he'd thought I'd need to topple All Might, but I can't simply refuse to use my claws and tail. He gestured towards himself, but he gave me a secret weapon, which he even claimed could take All Might's life. If I weren't to hold back, that is how I spite that bastard. It's why I wear this necklace. It helps suppress its power. The crowd stood on the verge of shock and disbelief. Every hotshot villain claimed that they could stomp out All Might and failed, but Izuku wasn't bragging like the villains, he displayed it like a fact. Todoroki thought the same. He couldn't sense any doubt in his voice, posture, or eyes. Very well, Todoroki said finally. I'll see you at the tournament. I hope you'll show me. Todoroki walked to the exit of the small tunnel. I hope you show me. Your will best's my own. Time skip. That was tense, geez. Jiraiya sighed deeply, then looked over to the small heap of friends that was Todoroki's comfort zone. Agreed. A large sum of voices replied. Are you okay, Todoroki-kun? Katsuku asked, raising his head to look up at him. This guy's going to give me a heart attack. Katsuku's shimmering eyes almost brought him to coddle the kitty as long as he lived, but he calmed himself. I'm fine, thank you all. The group gave their "it's fines" and "no problems." And now listeners, for the first match of the second round. Present Mick's astonishingly loud voice was amplified 1,000-fold by his microphone. Right to the second round? Present Mick asked. Well, yeah, Ochako answered, because this is where Deku and Todoroki fought. If I remember correctly, didn't Midoriya use his quirk to get out of Shinso's mind control? Momo speculated. All Might's eyes widened when he remembered One for All had been the reason that Izuku was able to escape. W'll remember Midoriya himself. Claimed his father prepared him for even me, so maybe it was that. Smooth, Sith congratulated All Might's quick wits, while Katsuku praised his mentor in silence. Izuku drowned out the blond man's voice. He walked from the tunnel, with his tail swaying attentively, and into the blinding light, in perfect view of the hundreds of thousands of people watching and screaming at him. Many had recollections of pride and embarrassment. But he couldn't care less. There were currently 6 people in this whole wide world that mattered right now, and only 3 of them were because of a positive reason. Harsh. Emmy Lady and Midnight said in unison. 1. His mother was watching today. There was a shot of a slightly skinnier version of Inko in a small apartment, looking anxious but not letting it replace her support in her son. Inko looked back nostalgically. That was such a big day for them both. 2. All Might. He'd always idolized him and felt as though winning this would prove why he'll be #1 someday, no matter what. Oh my boy, you didn't need to win for me to know this. 3. Izuku actually looked flushed as a bit of red spread across his face. Positive reason, huh? Mina asked slyly. Katsuku gave a quick squeaky roar. He looked over subtly where the 2 Hero Corps students sat while still walking and did his best not to smile at the girl in his view. Give it to me, Give me something to get him all flustered with. Mina thought she wasn't a mean person, but Midoriya was real cute when he's embarrassed if his interactions with Uraraka had anything to say about it. Izuku sighed. He looked right at Mina Ishido. What? The class turned to an unprepared Mina, who looked more rose-like rather than pink. As someone with a mutant-type quirk, odd looks were common, especially since he looked like, well, himself. But he'd found that mutation quirks were so fascinating to him, such as the absolute clusterfuck that was most likely Shoji's biology. Shoji took it like a man, even he didn't quite know what the hell's going on with him. But she was simply the most stunning he's ever seen. Mina squeaked and held her cheeks. But the rest of the six, first and foremost, was his old man. Whether or not he was still alive was a mystery to Izuku, but he couldn't care less. The second was Endeavor himself. Todoroki tilted his head a bit. Why? The absurdity of that bastard astonished Izuku, and he was supposed to be a hero? Worse yet, his superior? Laughable. Todoroki suddenly felt quite touched by Midoriya. The third was Todoroki. Izuku realized that they both had the same path to follow, the product of hatred, and it would show in this battle. Izuku stepped on the concrete stairs. The roaring flames of Endeavor caught his eyes. Todoroki is meant to be your greatest creation, but with the damage you've done, you've made him weak. Now I'll break him, right in front of you. No amount of context or build-up made that sentence any less sinister. Izuku and Todoroki stopped in their places, and Midnight swung her flag down after the few seconds they spent staring. Todoroki swung his right arm behind him, as Frost appeared on the stadium and his palm. Judging what he did to Zero, this could get ugly real fast. Izuku prepared himself, although doubting he really had it in him to do it twice. Zero scratched the back of his head. Todoroki's too good, he complained to Kaminari and Mina. Todoroki swung it. A stream of ice pillars raced towards him. Izuku growled and raised his arm like he was about to flick something at Todoroki, one for all charging in his hands. How does he still have that quirk? Mineta asked, being the voice of reason for the first time. WL, Katsuka started. No, he said that Automika guy made him perfect, right? Suya. Not so smooth, Small Might. The thought. Izuku let loose and obliterated the oncoming wave of ice, much to the awe of the audience. Izuku charged at Todoroki, holding his arms in front as much as possible while boosting off of each leg each time he landed. Todoroki tensed and crouched slightly to get a good angle of an upwards wave. Izuku aimed down and blasted himself up and over the attack, casting his shadow over the boy and descended quickly. Todoroki jumped to the right as the falling boy landed like a meteor. I get it, Katsuka said to himself. The added claws, teeth, and tail gave him enough confidence to attack him up front. Izuku was ignoring him, but he was sure he heard Present Mike say something about Izuku wanting to end it quickly. With a growl, Izuku ran at Todoroki, who sent another series of pillars his way. Izuku dodged to the left and charged again with a small roar. I wonder how much strength he packs without one for all, Katsuga continued while noticing his other self had only 3 toes on each foot and no shoes. Todoroki spun to him and set up a short, yet dense wall. Nice try. Izuku yelled, but dash. With a mighty crash. The wall was blown apart from Izuku leaping at it and hitting it with both arms. Before Todoroki could activate his ice, Izuku landed and threw a right hook straight to his jaw. Try again. A solid hit. Present Mike yelled. As long as I keep it to close quarters, I won't need one for all. Izuku thought to himself. Katsuka was too deep into muttering to notice his classmates' awe. It makes sense, he probably has denser muscles or stronger bones for strength. Todoroki rolled back, but recovered and got back up. You know what? Izuku stopped. I don't get it. Seeing Todoroki's confused expression, Izuku panted, not out of any form of exhaustion or need to stop, but he was getting angry. Why fight at only half your strength? Not even that. Izuku threw his arms out like he was frustrated. You don't attack with your fists, only your quirk, and only half of it. And look. Izuku gestured to his upper arm, which was covered in small mounds of ice. His skin was clearly frostbitten beneath. The crowd reeled back. It was common that Izuku didn't lash out easily, but this clearly got on his nerves. I know what this means to you, Izuku admitted, but if you keep this up, this isn't a fight anymore. Izuku glared and ran his thumbs through his other fingers, making a slow shink noise. This, Izuku stomped, causing the concrete around his foot to break, is a massacre. With a final feral roar, Izuku bounded at Todoroki, and too shocked to move, Izuku gave him a powerful blow square in the chest. The crowd gasped. The pure rage he displayed reminded them uncomfortably of the villainous version of Izuku. The force was enough to send Todoroki back once more. This time he'd sent a small wall behind him to catch him. Todoroki coughed blood onto the arena's floor. This could end two ways. Izuku beats his endurance, and he freezes himself over, or. Todoroki looked down at his left arm, and considered the option for a split second. But wait, why was Izuku encouraging him when he himself? You damn hypocrite! Todoroki yelled at Izuku, who looked a bit confused. Don't lecture me, you lizard. Did my damn old man pay you off or something? He's not wrong. Katsuku said, even it's supposed to take out All Might, he still refuses to use it just like Todoroki. WWL. Izuku couldn't come up with anything, which made Todoroki 100 times angrier than earlier. Bastard! Todoroki cried, and sent another, but a more widespread wave of ice at Izuku. Instead of running, Izuku stood still and put both his arms over his head. He didn't figure out his full / my feline's cowling yet. Is he really going to break his arms for that? All Might and Katsuki thought at the same time. And with that swing, Izuku blasted the icy attack to bits, and after a few seconds of panting, "You're getting weaker," Izuku muttered. Todoroki looked at the increasingly evident mound of ice on him and let out a small growl, and swung his arm back to send another wave of ice at Izuku. Not happening! He yelled as he shot another blast from his finger, sending an extremely chilling wave of air over Todoroki. Hey! Izuku called to him. Todoroki looked up as soon as he recovered. Wanna see something cool? Izuku asked. I don't like where this is going, Aizawa said. He knew he wouldn't pull out this supposed All Might killer, but he knew it was something. Just about everyone else was wondering what he was willing to interrupt the match over. Izuku lifted up his hand with the black-scaled, mangled finger, then a crack came from it. No! Katsuku was in awe. There was no way. The bottom joint snapped to normal, crack, and now the other. The crowd went through a large wave of amazement and slight disgust at the display, but after that, the students and teachers began to draw the lines between this Izuku and the Nomus. Todoroki reeled back out of a tad bit disgust and a bit more of fear. I loathe my old man, Izuku said while staring at his own hand, but the bastard knew what he was doing. The crowd above in the hero student seats had the same reaction as Todoroki. Jesus, Mina whispered, knew what he was doing? Like those Nomu things? She questioned. She looked over to Yoiorozu to share her thoughts, but she was staring straight up. In fact, everyone was. I really don't like where this is going, Present Mike proclaimed. She looked up and gasped, her eyes going wide. I have a bad feeling about this, Kaminari said aloud. All around the stadium, a circle of black clouds spun, closing in on the arena from above. The howling winds threatened to destroy anything too close. Before anyone asks anything, no. There wasn't a scheduled change of weather, Sith said confusingly. But then how was there a storm? Midnight asked. With a small chuckle, just watch. The howling winds and storm intensified, going faster and faster with what seemed to be the two boys below to be the eye of it. Sorry, Izuku said while scratching the back of his head while looking up. That happens sometimes, heh. Both shit. Katsuki breathed. This was some crazy shit, no doubt, but how the hell? Katsuku's surroundings became a typhoon of breathless muttering and speculation, and to be honest, no one was in any state to stop him from doing so. Well then, Todoroki looked up and saw the shadow the storm cast upon them. This just got interesting, Todoroki said, trying to keep his cool. Christ, that was badass, Izuku thought. Todoroki gave a smile through his shock. Izuku slammed the ground behind him with his tail, and began running, another slam, followed by another, now going into a full sprint. Todoroki took a cautious step back. Izuku did a single flip but landed on his tail, and bounded off it, giving him one last push to get close to Todoroki. Todoroki lifted up his hand and shot it down, creating a quick ice wall to block him. Damn, he's quicker than he looks. Taking one last look at the stirring storm above, he decided to end this quickly. The power you waste. Izuku's voice came from behind the wall, so in retaliation, Todoroki sent a large spike through it. Seeing this coming, Izuku tail whipped the spiky tip, and did a spinning punch, isn't his. Izuku punched the now flat tip of the ice spike, destroying it with a terrible crashing sound. Todoroki and Katsuku smiled, both remembering that this was truly the moment they were destined to be friends. Todoroki! Both audiences flinched at the shout, added in with the booms of thunder that hung overhead. Izuku gave one huge punch at his wall, creating a large enough hole to get through. It's your power. These words rang in his head, as time itself seemed to slow. Your father, the white-haired woman from before, sat with Shoto, who had a large bandage eye patch that covered nearly a quarter of his face, wants to make you a great hero. She patted his head lovingly and as gentle as she could be, just like High Dash. I don't want to be like him. Shoto cried into her leg. I'm not gonna cry. Nope, not today, damn it. Kirishima shouted internally, while others did the same, either whispering it or failing and feeling tiny pricks of hot tears collect in their eyes. I don't want to be someone who bullies you. Oh Shoto. The younger Todoroki looked up somberly at his mother. You can be. The shot went back to the present, with tiny spots of smoke appearing near his eye, steadily growing but being pushed and pulled by the winds. Anyone you want to be. His mother's voice echoed in his head. Ra. Todoroki snapped out of his daze at Izuku's shout, followed by a hard left punch to the face. I'm sorry you couldn't realize that. Ga. Todoroki did a small spin and landed on his hands and knees, panting heavily. Behind him, Izuku threw his head and arms back, staring straight into the swirling storm above, and released a high-pitched, triumphant and ear-splitting roar. Kriikyo. Fucking hell. Katsuki jumped back a bit. No form of Deku should ever be capable of making a noise like that. Hiss. Katsuki hissed as he coddled with Uraraka for a moment. Katsuki turned and realized what he did and recoiled, putting himself back in his seat, his face redder than Kirishima's hair. Nu, come back. She mentally pleaded, her face was glowing red for a moment, but any embarrassment was worth it for Kitty Deku, god dang it. That was kinda badass. Kaminari admitted while Kirishima nodded. He's louder than you are, / I am. Present Mike and Aizawa said in unison. Fuck. Mina cursed loudly as she threw her hands over her ears. What is that? She looked overhead, the lightning and thunder stormed on but were put to shame by Izuku's colossal roar. It was then when she noticed the only light came from the stadium lights due to the suppressive black clouds. Midoriya. She looked down at the boy, who took another step towards Todoroki's form. What are you? Todoroki turned his head to the left enough to look at Izuku, steadily panting and for some reason, fighting off his urge to smile. Is that, he panted once more, the best you can do? The smoke became ever more prominent. Izuku turned his head in clear confusion. Now, anyone who's watched at least 2 action movies, and more than one shonen anime, will know damn well what this is. Fiash. Ga. Izuku jumped back, watching a huge pillar of flames erupt in his direction. I'm proud of you, Todoroki. Katu praised him in silence. Finally, Izuku mumbled to himself as he turned back to the flaming fighting force that was Todoroki, a crazed smile on his face. I was waiting for this. He finished while cracking his knuckles. Shoto! A prideful and huge voice broke through the storm, as a large heap of fire came running to the side of the stadium. Really? Izuku shouted mentally. I used to think that this part was kinda cool, but now he's just a dick. Jiru said. Glad we can agree on something. Katsuki said without taking his eyes off the screen. Yep / aha / damn straight. the crowd stated. The big bad flamefuck, as Izuku now refers to him as. Deku, I'd like you if you were like that more often. Katsuki gestured at the screen. Please don't curse Deku. Uraraka had heard him do it quite enough already. Started spouting some bullcrap about teenage rebellion, embracing his destiny or whatever. So he picked up the largest chunk of ice he could grab and started spinning around. 200 yen says he's about to break Endeavor's legs with that thing. Kaminari stated as he started looking in his pockets. Oh, you're on. Kirishima started digging into his pockets. Rah! Izuku let go, and the small glacier went sailing through the air straight at the steadily increasing fireball that was the big bad flamefuck. The corner of Todoroki's lip curved into a tiny smile, which Katsuki caught immediately. Huh! Endeavor looked up at the descending block of icy murder aimed at him, and with his highly trained reflexes, shot off a couple of fireballs from each hand, shattering it to bits. Oh come on! Damn it! Jairu and Katsuki yelled while Kaminari and Kirishima let out a small pout, despite Kirishima winning. Todoroki felt loved. Shut the fuck up, old man! Izuku roared across the stadium, silencing anyone who tried talking to him. I've always wanted to do that to my old man. Izuku thought with a small twisted smile. Thanks, but why are you smiling? Todoroki stated. Hey Deku, Katsuki started. 1. I'm stealing that big bad flamefuck thing from you, and 2. Next time you see him, turn him into your scratching post. Wow, for him that was surprisingly supportive. Sure Kachin. Give him a kick to the fireballs from me. Jairu said while Momo murmured something about crudeness. If you can, suplex him. Mineta cheered. But one more thing. Todoroki's flames simmered down slightly while ice began to form on his right side. What about you? You are strong, but show me what you're made of. And without any sign or kind of warning, a tidal wave of ice emerged from his side, rising and descending upon Izuku. He took one step back, stayed firm. I wanted to ask you something. The scene changed to Izuku and All Might, him in cargo pants and a white shirt, while Izuku stood with a middle schooler's uniform. Oh, 1 foot of these. Kaminari said while everyone took momentary glances from Katsuki to All Might and back to the screen. From my birth, my father raised me for one reason, to defeat you. Izuku looked down, took a deep breath and stared straight at All Might. Even though my father is, and I was raised to be a villain, can I even hope to be as great a hero as you? All Might's grinning face turned to Izuku. Koda was a sensitive boy, don't blame him for what he's about to do. But you already are, young Midoriya. All Might thought. A flash of light, and Izuku and skinny All Might were both standing on an isolated street at the glowing orange sunset. Young man, All Might stretched his hand towards Izuku who looked teary-eyed. Izuku tried holding it in, he truly did. Inko and All Might smiled warmly at the screen. Seeing their son/pupil achieve his dreams was nothing less than precious. All Might turned his head a bit while he listened to a strange noise come from him. Young man, are you purring? Can lizards do that? Sorry. Izuku fake coughed into his hand. That, happens sometimes. At the moment he almost looked like a big monstrous puppy, scary yes, but still a puppy. Dang it Deku. Uraraka thought, you cute little thing. Anyways young man, I don't care who your father is, you too can become a great hero. Dad might. Mineta said, oh all the way. Ciro replied, to All Might's embarrassment. A great hero. These words rang in his head, as a strange thing seemed to happen, he felt a surge of power from the innards of his spine and the tip of his tail. Is this it? The All Might killer? Present Mike shouted. Izuku's eyes glowed a bright navy blue as what sounded like an airplane engine starting to rev up. I believe so. Nizu answered. His spine started to glow the same color as he opened his mouth as if to scream, the revving got louder. If he turns into a tiny mic, I'm leaving. Izawa thought. The back of his throat glowed blue as well, and at the same time, the lighting struck with more and more fury. Changing the weather based on his mood and power levels? What the hell? Katsuki thought. Atomic dash. The energy formed a solid ball in his mouth as the ice was a mere 8 meters away. Oh shit! Kaminari bounced in his seat. Breath! The ice was at an arm's length when the beam was released. The camera zoomed out to about the perspective of a random watcher, and the energy looked 10 times brighter than lightning. The revving stopped, and replaced with a roaring. PW. The beam pierced the ice wave's front and destroyed what was left in its wake, creating shockwaves of ice shards or merely evaporated it. Who? Shiro, Kaminari, and Mina whooped. The beam traveled farther, obliterating Todoroki's attack, and quicker than a bolt of lightning, Todoroki was face to face to it. Todoroki-kun I dash. No need Midoriya, it was a competition. Well, Fu dash, Todoroki could only set out a thin ice shield before the blast carried him away on a stream of pure radiated power. The heat was unbearable, but he put as much ice as he could to his defense. Gah! The beam broke his shield, giving him the full force of the beam before, boom. Todoroki slammed into the stadium wall, creating a crater in his wake. And then Midori. Words failed Mina and the audience. I mean, he's packing some crazy power. Mina said, much to the crowd's agreement. I hope this version of me gets to fight Deku. Katsuki thought, but he could just shoot me out of the air when I try my howitzer impact. Izuku turned his head to his exact right, and fired again holding out the blast. Todoroki's not even there. Kirishima shouted. Todoroki's not air. Kirishima scratched the back of his head, but what was he planning? Izuku whipped his head from right to left, destroying the stadium wall and lighting it with a great flame. The shot turned to Izuku's back, showing that all he saw was a great wave of destruction and flames, topped off with the striking lighting above. That's so cool, Eri said in awe. Jairu, unknown to most of her peers, was actually a big fan of action, and this was, oh man, this was on another level. Izuku crossed his arms over his face in an X and leaned forwards while bending his knees. Jairu got out her phone with a slightly dopier smile than was natural for her, more belonging to Kaminari. Momo turned to Jairu, who had also brought out her phone. Cree-yo. Despite the earlier dosage of his roar, the audience still had a bit of an unpleasant experience. The camera turned to a jaw-dropped and starstruck audience and zoomed in on Shinso, who sat in silence. Dude, I could have died. I mean, is he wrong? Satoest. Time skip. Izuku looked down at a tablet in his hands. It's only been a few days after the sports festival, and holy crap. Hey, I want to see me crush Deku. Katsuki yelled, of course assuming that they were the last one standing. He'll talk about it, just hold on. Sith informed him. Izuku's corner lip curled into a smile as he saw his internship offer number, right about 3,900 and counting. Still less than me, Katsuki thought proudly. And second at 3,400, and counting of course, sat Bakugo. You spoke too soon. Mr. Sith? Kirishima said. Bakugo didn't say anything though. I read his mind. Informed. How do you pick just one? Izuku mumbled to himself, Hey, Todoroki-san? Todoroki perked up as he walked over. What's up? With a sigh, Izuku pointed at the tablet. Any advice? Well, I'm going with my father dash. Ugh. Izuku rolled his eyes. I know, but I'd suggest going with whoever will help you in a field you're struggling in, like how Uraraka's going with Gunhead to work on combat. Mr. Sith? Katsuga asked. Being a god and all, could you, Sith snapped his fingers and a notebook and pen landed on Katsuga's lap. Oh, thanks. I suppose. Izuku said, and as Todoroki walked away, he thought about their conversation after the match. Hey, Izuku sat on a bench for some peace of mind for his last match against Bakugo, when he saw Todoroki stroll by. Todoroki turned to him. Can you sit with me for a second? I want to ask you something. Izuku beckoned him to the seat. Todoroki and Izuku turned to each other with slightly confused expressions. This didn't happen. Seeing no valid reason not to, Todoroki sat next to Izuku. Well, okay, but after I have something to tell you. Well, Izuku tried to find the right words and looked at his feet, Before our match we talked about our past. Yes, and we confided in each other the one thing we wouldn't to anyone else. Midoriya, I don't like where this is going. But Izuku's scaly tail grabbed his hand. To do Deku. Mina whispered to Toru while Midnight and Lady cooed. Please let me finish, we quite literally brought the best out of each other. Katsuku's hair stood on end as his skin went red like a strawberry, with his freckles / whiskers as seeds. And we helped each other with our family issues. What I wanted to ask you was, Izuku looked right at Todoroki with hopeful slit eyes. Does this mean we can be friends, Todoroki-san? The broms, it's too much. Kaminari said. With a tiny sigh, Todoroki scratched the back of his head. It'd be a shame if we weren't Midoriya. Good, Izuku stated. With 3 years here, it'd be a real shame to spend it all without a friend, right? You'd be correct, I guess. Todoroki and Izuku sat in silence for a moment. Sue. Damn cute. Mina said into her palms. Midoriya, can you release my hand? Oh, sorry. Izuku's tail released him. Following this conversation was the absolute slaughter that was the last match. Hell yeah. Katsuki grinned. In which Izuku took off his suppressor necklace and sent Katsuki into the thunderclouds with his one-for-all red spiral atomic breath, which All Might trademarked immediately. All Might. Aizawa rubbed his temples. As for Katsuki, he did the same, using every bit of his willpower not to ignite his own face. Hee, sorry Baku bro. Kirishima tried to comfort him. Izuku sighed with satisfaction and browsed his options. Gang Orca was a good one. Just like Izuku, he was big, terrifying but nevertheless, a hero. Time skip. Izuku wished he had more time to prepare for this. Hero name selections were taking place, hosted by Midnight. He was really impressed. Some were actually pretty cool. He glanced at Tokoyami, now known as Tsukuyami, and then Uraraka. The other Tokoyami nodded in approval, definitely happy with his choice, while Uraraka looked flattered. Some were questionable, eyeing Bakugo. And one more thing, if Ioma could call himself Can't Stop Shining, why couldn't Mina be Alien Queen? Oh my G, thank you. Mina yelled out she loved the name Pinky, make no mistake. Anyways, Izuku looked down at his own board. If she was turned down for that, I don't think Sensei would like this. Midnight called for the next person to come up, and Izuku sighed while getting up from his seat. Ooh, I wonder what it is. Midnight wondered. She loved that the students were able to express themselves. So, it's different from Deku this time around. Uraraka said aloud, but then she turned to Katsuku. Hey Deku, in your world your hero name is Deku, right? Hee, actually, it's Deko, like Nico, cat in Japanese, with a D. He explained while swishing his tail back and forth. The sheer willpower and inner turmoil it took everyone in the room to not run up and coddle the Emerald Kitty forever and ever was astronomical, but they resisted. Still, Mina and Toru whined while Momo made 2 paper bags for her and Gyre to hyperventilate into. Hell, Inko nearly broke into tears. I don't think you'll like mine, Sensei. Izuku informed her as he went to the front of the class. Oh nonsense, Midoriya-kun. Go right ahead. She egged him on while moving to the left. All right then, he cleared his throat to make sure he won't mess up. He put his board on display for the class and looked straight at them with his firm and hopeful eyes. From now on I am the king of the monsters, Godzilla. And the screen faded to black. Okay, that's badass. Kaminari exclaimed. Had the name, the fight scene, or dash? Zero tried to ask. All of it, just, all of it. That was pretty cool. Katsuka said, wondering if it counted as bragging or not. Approved. Midnight squealed with a lady while All Might thought it over. King of Monsters? A powerful title. Well done, young Midoriya. Hee, so, ready for the next one everybody? Sith asked, and all he was met with was a flurry of yes.